material.
The TRC Cases Inquiry has heard about an alleged secret plan to stop apartheid-era prosecutions through legislation. Former director at the National Prosecuting Authority, Anton Ackerman, took the inquiry through the alleged plan during his testimony today. The inquiry was set up to probe delays in prosecuting apartheid-era crimes. The cases were referred to the NPA following hearings at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Dimakatso Leshoro has more.
Anton Ackerman testified that at the time he was preparing indictments against former security branch members when Jan Wegner told him about high-level discussions between the SANDF, SAPS, ANC leaders and former presidents F.W. de Klerk and Thabo Mbeki, where a political solution was agreed on to avoid further prosecutions. He stated that a new amnesty bill had been drafted that would allow the president to grant indemnity to those who made full disclosure of apartheid-era crimes. Ackerman told the commission he was unaware at the time of any so-called secret amnesty task team that was behind the proposal. He further alleged that Wegner warned him that if former security branch members were prosecuted, private prosecutions would be instituted against ANC figures. Dimakatso Leshoro, Eyewitness News.
The city of Johannesburg says it will be conducting inspections at every construction site in the metro following a building collapse that killed 9 people this week. Officials say developers who are non-compliant will be blacklisted and charged accordingly. Yesterday, the Minister of Public Works, Dean McPherson, visited the site and admitted that the situation signals the need for crisis management. Jabuli Lembata has more.
In a statement, City Manager Floyd Brink said they will be starting with audits of all developments which are currently under construction. He says all documents will be checked and verified in order to safeguard the public from further disaster. Yesterday, Joburg Mayor Dada Morero admitted that they've had challenges with this process.
And yes, we do not have the enough resources, as you know, but the resources that we have to be used optimally to ensure that they perform on their works.
Brink added that bylaws will be enforced with no exceptions. Jabuli Lembata, Eyewitness News.
Parliament has paid tribute to the legislature's first National Council chairperson, Musia Lakota. The presiding officers say they salute Lakota as a principled leader who valued dialogue, democratic debate and constitutional governance. He's also been honoured for the contribution he made in shaping the early years of the NCOP. Lakota's family announced his passing today at the age of 77 after a period of ill health. Lindsay Dentlinger reports.
Musia Lakota, affectionately known as Terror in the parliamentary corridors, was the inaugural NCOP chairperson between 1997 and 1999. He entered Parliament after having served as the first Premier of the Free State. Designed to give the provinces a voice in lawmaking, Parliament says Lakota played a pivotal role in shaping the identity, ethos and institutional culture of this new Chamber of Parliament. Parliamentary spokesperson Moloto Matapo.
His leadership contributed to laying the foundations for the NCOP as a forum where national legislation is scrutinized through the lens of provincial priorities and where cooperative governance is advanced.
After quitting the ANC, he would later return to Parliament as an opposition leader of his own party, COPE, winning 30 seats in the 2009 elections. The party's support waned over time, and after bitter infighting, it failed to make a return after the 2024 elections. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
And Malaysia's anti-corruption agency is probing alleged abuse of power, fraud and governance between the Malaysian government and British chip giant Arm Holdings. According to reports, the charges are linked to a $280 million deal between the two parties. The country allegedly roped in the firm to boost production of high-end semiconductors, a move which would have seen the country move from being a key player in the chips sector into more value-added production. The Anti-Corruption Commission says it has summoned a total of 12 witnesses from various government agencies. While gold is trading at $5,166.87 an ounce, the rand is at 16.46 to the dollar, 22.01 to the pound, 19.13 to the euro, and Brent crude oil is at $81.48 a barrel.
In the traffic, look out for faulty traffic lights in Boysens at Boysens and John Road, in Douglasdale at Douglasdale and Witkoppen Road.
In your sport, unbeaten Proteas looking to advance to a second consecutive T20 World Cup final. Cedric Kaze calls for cool heads as Kaizer Chiefs lose again. And Arne Slot frustrated as slow and predictable Liverpool are beaten by Wolves.
It's a cloudy afternoon in Gauteng today with scattered showers and thundershowers expected. Temperatures have peaked at highs of between 24 and 26 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour: suspended head of organised crime at the SAPS, Richard Shibiri, says he used to exchange text messages with suspected crime boss Vusimuzi Kat Matlala, but he says it was for social purposes.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with John Perlman on 702.
Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app, DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
.702 Drive with John Perlman is proudly brought to you by Telkom Business. Possibility begins here. Good afternoon, everyone. It's 8 minutes past 3 on Wednesday, the 3rd of March. This is 702 Drive with me, John Perlman. Wherever you are listening to us in 702 land, welcome to the show. He was a leading light in the United Democratic Front. He served as a cabinet minister in the first years of South Africa's democracy. He was the co-founder of the Congress of the People, COPE. We'll reflect on the life and legacy of Musia Lakota, whose life spanned many, many years and many, very, very different phases in South African politics and life. We'll do that after 4 o'clock. In other stories, do you know where we get our oil from and where we are most vulnerable as the conflict unfolds in the Middle East and appears to deepen with each passing hour? Well, with fuel prices certain to rise in the coming weeks and fears growing that we might even face shortages, we're going to explore the details of our vulnerabilities. More on that coming up in a moment. The construction industry once again in the spotlight with the tragedy out in Ormonde. We hear that the company that was building the building that collapsed was not registered to actually do that kind of work. How does registration work? How do regulations actually develop teeth and make a difference? We'll talk to Roy Mnisi from Master Builders South Africa after 5 o'clock. And as you heard Mbali Dlamini a moment ago, the Madlanga Commission is hearing from yet another senior police officer who has a relationship, but just a friendly one, we're told, with Kat Matlala. The testimony is coming from the head of organised crime, Richard Shibiri. I do wonder about these titles, by the way, that the South African Police Service have. The title Head of Organised Crime doesn't come out all that well in the context of what's going on at the Madlanga Commission. Maybe some editing. Head of Organised Crime Prevention, Head of Organised Crime Detection, Head of Organised Crime Eradication. Those are just three that come off the top of the head for me. But yeah, I must admit, sort of wince when I hear that somebody is the head of organised crime and they're in the police. Much better news from the markets today after yesterday's battering. The all share is up by 1,760 points. It's a gain of 1.5%. All the indexes are in the green, which is good news, although there's a lot of ground to make up from terrible Tuesday yesterday. The resource index in particular has bounced back strongly, up by 3%. Long way to go, though, as I say. Still, the platinum price is up by 3.6%, which has led to big gains for Northam, up 8.8%, Valterra up by 5.5%, and Sibanye, which has picked up by 4.5%. Yesterday's big winners, as these things often do, are somewhat in retreat. Sasol down by 5.5%. Tungela coal supplier to Sasol is down by 4.1%. The rand is trading at 16 rand 39 against the dollar, 5 cents weaker over the last 24 hours. A euro will cost you 19 rand and 7 cents. That's a 10-cent loss, and 21 rand 91 will get you a pound. That's a 15-cent loss against sterling. If you take the weakening rand against the dollar and the fact that the oil price continues to climb, this is not good news. Brent crude currently trading at $82.23 a barrel. Stephen Critters joins us with all the market news at 4:25. Well, excuse me. We'll get sport with Tolakele Mganga. Fingernail biting time, perhaps? Or are we just going to watch the Proteas cruise? I don't think so. New Zealand tough opponents in knockout play at World Cups. That game getting underway at 3:30. Bali Dlamini, who you heard a moment ago, has the latest news headlines. Khomotso Munyai keeping an eye on the roads for us. This is 702 Drive. We're live in the place where you live. If it's happening in 702 land, you'll hear about it here first. But if you do hear of something or know of something or pick up a detail or perhaps a fact that needs correcting, please, we need to hear from you as soon as these things strike you as important. 072 702 1702 or 011 883 0702. Still trying to find out details, not just us, of course, but more crucially the authorities, about who exactly was responsible for putting up the building that collapsed. And collapsed, by the way, in a way that, according to Professor Stephen Walls, who we spoke to yesterday from Stellenbosch University, suggested fundamental construction flaws. If you missed that interview, it's well worth a listen. You can pick it up on primemediaplus.com. But he was saying, if a building collapses in a way that it goes down almost like a deck of cards where one piece is connected to another piece and they all induce, I think he may have used actually not a pack of cards, but a dominoes in a dominoes game, then there's something that was absolutely fundamentally wrong in the way it was built. But listen to Prof. Walls. He'll explain it far more precisely and with a greater level of articulation than I have. primemediaplus.com. There's great stuff there. I suggest you pay it a visit. 14 minutes past 3.
702.
Let's walk the talk.
Lots to talk about, lots to inquire about, lots to think about, including some of those thoughts that pop into our heads via conversation or sometimes purely random, staring into the distance and coming up with an idea. Not so entirely random. Earlier, I was just saying to the team as we were preparing the show, we should create a WhatsApp group for that, because there's a particular communication issue in the producing of the show that we want to sort out. And so I suggested a WhatsApp group, to which I think it was Kabazela responded and said, another WhatsApp group, which raised the question of how many WhatsApp groups are you actually a member of? You should be able to get this immediately out of your phone. I, for some reason, can't. It may point to a generalized let's say, underperformance in the area of tech in this modern life of ours. But for me, it's quite a lot. I would say it might be 12, 15. I'm not sure. Jonathan Fairburn, not another WhatsApp group. I get your point, although I do think we need this one. We'll take that offline. But how many WhatsApp groups are you in?
Afternoon, John, and afternoon to our 702 family. So I'm looking here and I've got, about 15 groups.
Okay.
Now, some of them are muted, and others I'm active in, and others I'm just an observer and watch and eat popcorn from time to time.
Oh, because people have squabbles.
Yeah, no, those are the best sometimes. Geez, I actually just looking, I need to delete some of these groups as well, because, sometimes people set up groups for temporary arrangements.
Yes.
Or planning arrangements, and then, it gets used for that particular time, and then it's done. So there's a few here that I need to get rid of, like Dre's Spit Bri Bachelor Party.
How was it?
It was good. The meat was cooked perfectly fine.
Okay.
The entertainment was great.
Okay. But you can now delete it with a warm memory to bank.
Yes.
There we go. Delete.
I've got a few bachelors here. Josh's bachelors, Taz's bachelorette. Fix My City, Joburg. there's a few here that I need to do a bit of a cleaning up on.
Okay, so you got to tidy it up. So we want to know from you, how many groups are you in? Which are the ones that you actually really enjoy being part of, whether it's spectator value, get out the popcorn, as Kabazela put it, or because actually the content's great and you enjoy sharing those messages? And which are the ones that, if you haven't muted them already, you really ought to, just for your own sanity? Khumotso, traffic in a moment, but WhatsApp groups, are they abundant in your device?
It's as if you knew. I was actually counting now, and I've got 42 WhatsApp groups.
42?
It's ridiculous.
Oh
I need to do some spring cleaning. Hey,
Yes.
so this was a productive exercise. Okay, so I think after this, I'm looking at some of them. I'm even the admin now. People have long left the groups.
Yes.
So I'm gonna do better.
Okay.
Yeah. 42 is a big number.
Who are we to judge? Have as many as you want. But tell me,
No.
tell us the one you enjoy being in the most.
The family group. Oh, love the family group.
Yes.
Until someone else, provoke someone else, and then they have to leave a group, and then we have to start afresh another family group because, but the family groups are always the ones for me.
Yeah.
Love them down.
And what have you most recently muted, or what do you think you need to mute?
I actually don't do that, hey? Yeah, I've never had a WhatsApp group that, even if it's work, or I've never had a WhatsApp group that I've actually muted. No, I've never.
Really?
In fact,
let's create one and
I was about to say
annoy
there is
you.
a particular there is a particular show here.
Yes.
I think whose WhatsApp group I've actually muted because they don't sleep. But I'm not
yes.
gonna tell on them. But yeah,
Well, it's definitely not us.
Leave us hanging.
I'm relaxed because I know it's not us. We sleep.
Yeah, we do.
Mostly soundly. Your WhatsApp group profile, please. How many you got? Any that you absolutely really enjoy? Family groups seem to give people a lot of pleasure until they don't. And any that you've muted, and if so, why? Drop us a note on that, please, on 072 702 1702 and 011 883 0702. Let's get you out and about in the traffic, hopefully without too much trouble. Khumotso, how's it looking?
thank you, John. We'll start in Randburg. Traffic is congested on the N1 South. This is just after Winnie Mandela Drive. And in Bedfordview, there's traffic pressure on the R24 West. This is backing up from Macro Store just towards the Galulis interchange. And look out for slow-moving traffic on the M2 West from the Crown interchange to Main Reef Road. If you do come across any other traffic on your side, please do send us a WhatsApp on 072 702 1702.
Clement Maniatella,
Weekday mornings,
9 to 12.
9 to 12.
What's currently taking place in the Middle East and trying to get a sense of what the French position is there.
We really regret the fact that international law is not being respected because it will have a long-term effect everywhere in the world. No one in my country can be saddened by the passing of the Iranian dictator. That's absolutely clear. We're talking about someone who has been butchering his own people for years and years and years.
David Martineau is the ambassador of France to South Africa, Lesotho and Malawi.
Clement Maniatella.
9 to 12 on 702.
Think fast downloads, fast streaming, fast wins. Because whether you're chasing high scores, deadlines, or the next episode, buffering is not part of the plan. That's why your home needs the power of OpenServe Fiber, fast, reliable Wi-Fi that keeps up with your life. And when you sign up before the end of March, you'll score a free Netflix voucher. Level up your home connection with OpenServe Fiber and feel the difference speed makes. Visit openserve.co.za today. T's and C's apply.
Did you know that you have the power to ensure your daughter is fully protected from cervical cancer when she grows up? Yes, protecting a daughter from cervical cancer is absolutely possible. And all that you need to do is ensure that your daughter gets the HPV vaccine at the age of 9. The HPV vaccine gives your daughter the best possible protection against cervical cancer and can prevent her from becoming part of the statistics. This message is brought to you by the Department of Health.
We at Monument Dental are very happy with the premium we're paying. I wish I did it sooner.
Outsurance business insurance clients know that it pays to switch. And did you know you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium when you switch? For dentistries, general medical practices, and all other businesses, get a quote today and see why it pays to switch to Outsurance business insurance. Visit outsurance.co.za or call 08600 60,000 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
You're with John Perlman on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
7:02 Drive, it's 21 minutes past 3. A couple of you responding on the WhatsApp question. Natasha Lee says 6 groups for school, 2 service delivery groups for our neighborhood, 3 security groups for our neighborhood, so we're on 11, and 1 family group. Monwa BC raises a very different point, not answering the question in the specific, but I think presents us with something very interesting indeed, and says, I thank God every day for how I grew up from a poor background where we enjoyed the company of people. This thing of growing up rich, we all wanted, but it's a problem because most people have a mindset now of thinking that they can live alone and suggesting, I'm assuming from that because it is in direct answer to the question we asked, that maybe people think WhatsApps are a substitute for real relationships. Very interesting. Thank you, Munwa BC. You may want to respond to what he said. Either way, go engage with us on 072 702 1702. Right. Let's focus our attention now on what's been going on down in Parliament. Parliamentarians have been hearing from various people in the Peace and Security Cluster about the SANDF and the proposed deployment in the Western Cape, as I understand it, and the Eastern Cape in areas afflicted with conflicts between gangs, and then to Gauteng, and I would think by extension to parts of the Northwest, because some of the areas of illegal mining certainly cross those provincial boundaries. So, what have the people in charge been saying to the people who are meant to be looking out for our interests, the members of Parliament? Babalo, very good afternoon to you. What did we learn about the deployment plans at Parliament today? Welcome.
Yes, indeed, John. Early this morning, the joint committee met. Now, this is the police committee as well as the portfolio committee on mineral and petroleum resources discussing this deployment. Now, mineral resources is part of this committee because, mining falls within this portfolio, so the illegal mining aspect would also form part of these discussions. So they got a briefing from Firoz Kachalia, the acting Minister of Police, who says the deployment, will involve training, which is currently underway, the training of, both police and SANDF on how to conduct, these operations in these provinces. And he says once this is complete, John, this will lead to a rollout, that will last until 2027. That's next year, the 31st of March. So it's going to last for about a year, this whole rollout and this work in these provinces. But he says it's not a magic bullet, that will solve everything. It's just, some kind of a measure while the police and the SANDF work on a more longer-term strategy. So they heard about the deployment and how this deployment will not be across the whole country, but to certain hotspots. Now, some of the hotspots, just to give you an idea of these hotspots, John, it's the Western Cape, gang violence, gangsterism on the Cape Flats, which is quite specific, city of Cape Town. Eastern Cape is gangsterism in the northern areas of Nelson Mandela Bay, and this also includes Humansdorp and Jeffreys Bay in the Sarah Baartman district, and then in Gauteng, as you just mentioned now, illicit mining primarily in Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg, and the West Rand. But it's not just contained to that because it is illicit mining, and we do know the Northwest is a big mining province. So we know that the Platinum Belt is also a key area. The Kosh area, I think this is Gladstone, Orkney, Stilfontein, and Hartbeesfontein, John, as well as the Dr. Ruth Mompati district. But the Free State also part of that, John. It's also going to have an illicit mining focus where the police and the SANDF will be collaborating, and this is just the goldfields area of the Free State. So these are some of the details that the committees got from the police ministry as well as Fanny Masemola. Masemola also touching the National Commissioner on the budget and, saying that there is a figure of R1 billion that's being bandied about. But he says, the SANDF, the police, they both have different budgets. And they all have budgets for different priorities, illicit mining. There might be a strategy that might, I think 300 million was another figure that Fanny Masemola quoted for the police, as far as this strategy to fight organized crime. So a lot of money will go into this. But as far as the SANDF deployment and budget is concerned, we'll see that figure once the president, does send this notice to the National Assembly, where he will basically give details of how many members of the SANDF have been deployed, etc. So that's basically all the meeting covered, John. And members did obviously have questions about issues around oversight.
And just finally, Babalo, and briefly if you can, one of the concerns when these massive operations are undertaken is what happens after either they get scaled down or they get shut down altogether. For example, Operation Valomgodi, which was meant to deal with illegal mining, came to an end. I mean, a full stop on that. Yes, there may have been a reinvention or a redeployment of some of the efforts from that. But I don't know if MPs raised this, and if they did they get answers that sounded persuasive to you?
No, they did touch on Operation Valomgodi specifically. Now, this is an operation that it looks like the police are in favor of this operation, basically picking up where it left off or being part of this strategy. We do know that Feroz Kachala says, they are busy making reforms within the police on how to deal with all these areas and these weak spots as well as these high crime hotspots. And he says that, even before the Zondo Commission is concluded, I beg your pardon, not the Zondo Commission, the Madlanga Commission has concluded, and the ad hoc committee in Parliament has concluded, they will come up with some kind of a plan. He has set up some kind of a board or a council, which will also be, served to also advise him on how to move forward. So he says there is a plan. Some of the plans have to be, briefed, before cabinet and other deputy ministers. He's got 2 deputies, and he says, you can't give us details at the moment because he hasn't briefed these relevant people within his department. But there does seem to be a long-term plan that will be presented once complete to cabinet as well as to South Africa at large. But he does say that long-term strategies, initiatives, organized crime, gangsterism, those are part of this whole elaborate plan that Feroz Kachala will be presenting to the country in due course, John.
Thanks so much, Babalo Ndenze. So slowly taking shape. I mean, if you live in one of the areas, and Babalo went extensively, we now include the Free State in the illegal mining part of this operation that would involve the deployment of the SANDF. Gang violence on the one hand, illegal mining on the other, with the specific focus on gang violence being the Western and Eastern Cape. But if you live in any of those areas, I mean, do get in touch. First of all, are you hearing anything on the ground? People saying, hey, listen, from this date, we're going to be getting this and that by way of reinforcements to deal with the problem that has made our lives so dangerous and miserable. And secondly, do you have any sense of optimism as you listen to what Babalo has had to share with us? Get in touch with us on that on 072 702 1702. Just an update on the cricket. It's about to start, I think, in 1 minute time. I'm resisting the temptation, despite the fact that we have 2 television sets here in the studio, both of them big and with lovely definition. I think we've decided, no, we cannot have the cricket on. Too much of a distraction, but New Zealand won the toss. They put South Africa into bat. The South African team has a familiar look. You may recall some players were rested for the game against Zimbabwe, but the players who were rested are all back in the team. So a very, very familiar look indeed. Marco Jansen, Kagiso Rabada, Keshav Maharaj all come back for a team, and the first 2 out to try and get us into the final. Aiden Markram and Quinton de Kock about to open the batting out in Kolkata. Send your very best, your very most positive vibes, and if you have lucky charms, please, I hope you haven't forgotten where they are. Let's go out and see if we can reach this final. It's 3:30. Okay, let's get the very latest eyewitness news, and Bali Dlamini is ready to update us on what's going on. Good afternoon.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says he will always remember Musia Lakota's contribution to the liberation struggle despite their political differences. The COPE leader died at the age of 77 early this morning after a prolonged illness. Although the two were close at the start of their political careers, their relationship deteriorated in the early 1970s. Lakota had for many years accused Ramaphosa of selling him out and standing by while he was detained on Robben Island. But Ramaphosa maintains that Lakota was a man of great integrity regardless of their political disagreements.
Lakota and I have a long history of political activism, and we met at university and we were both expelled from university for our political activism, and we met again when we were both involved in the ANC, and he became a minister in our government.
He says he still holds much respect for the late COPE leader.
Due to political differences that are common in the political life, he went off and formed his own organization, and I continued to have a deep respect for him. He was a committed South African. He loved this country, much as we were now serving from different benches, as it were.
The Cape Crime Crisis Coalition says it's deeply alarmed by the quarterly crime statistics for the Western Cape. While murders decreased, the statistics for the period October to December 2025 show Cape Town Central Police Station is the number one on the list for community-reported serious crimes across the country. Carlo Peterson takes a look.
While murders decreased, the Western Cape recorded increases in several serious crimes in the latest quarterly crime statistics. Cape Crime Crisis Coalition chairperson Llewellyn McMaster says it's not surprising.
Once again, a number of Cape Flats communities feature in the national top 30 list of high crime stations. This reflects a deep and ongoing crisis of gang-related and interpersonal violence in the Western Cape.
The coalition is calling for the finalization of a co-designed process agreed on by SAPS.
And the implementation of a comprehensive anti-gang and violence prevention strategy on the Cape Flats.
McMaster says short-term deployments to deal with gangsterism and crime in the province are not enough. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News.
The Gauteng Education Department says it will start implementing a program for grades 1 and 8 learners to catch up now that all pupils have been placed in the province. The department confirmed that the last group of learners admitted yesterday has now started with classes. Parents have raised their complaints with the department over placements since the start of the 2026 school year. Jabuli Lembata has more.
Last month, many parents were seen lining up at the respective Education Department district offices, desperate for their children to get schools. The department says there were 33,000 late applications, which contributed to the placement backlog. Department spokesperson Steve Mabona says the last group were placed in schools in Tembisa and Kempton Park.
By Tuesday evening, on the 3rd of March 2026, the department had successfully placed all remaining learners at alternative schools in the respective areas. Now, in numbers, the total figure of grade 1 and grade 8 learners that were placed for the 2026 academic year through the system accounted at over 392,000.
The department had placed almost 800 mobile classrooms across 15 districts to deal with the pressure. Jabuli Lembata, Eyewitness News.
And in a disturbing story now from South Korea, a woman and her 2 doctors have been convicted of murder for killing her baby. According to reports, the woman wanted to terminate the pregnancy at 36 weeks, but the baby was born alive and then later killed. Abortions are not regulated properly in South Korea. The procedure was decriminalized in 2019, but there is no clear regulation on how far into a pregnancy that it can be carried out. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison, suspended for 5 years. It's a partly cloudy afternoon in Gauteng today with scattered showers and thundershowers expected. Temperatures have peaked at highs of between 24 and 26 degrees.
In the traffic in Randburg, there's been an accident on the N1 South just after Malibongwe Drive, and it is causing heavy traffic. And look out for slow-moving traffic on the M2 West from the Crown Interchange to Main Reef Road.
The top story in EWN, President Cyril Ramaphosa says he will always remember Musia Lakota's contribution to the liberation struggle despite their political differences.
The Midday Report.
Weekdays,
12 to 1.
I was really sad to hear the news about Musia Lakota. I interviewed him many times over my career as a journalist when he was a Minister of Defence, and then, of course, when he made that landmark decision to leave the ANC, and then he decided to launch COPE along with Mbazima Shilowa. I spent a lot of time on the campaign trail with Musia Lakota in the Eastern Cape. He was always so affable, he was very passionate, he was a patriot, and he was a true fighter.
The Midday Report
with Mandy Wiener.
12 to 1 on 702.
702.
Some ingredients are simple until they're not. This week, the humble onion becomes the hero in the pressure cooker kitchen of MasterChef South Africa. The onion family is bold, sharp and sweet, but also unforgiving, and it can make you cry. Expect a challenge that separates the good cooks from the great ones, because when you strip everything back, flavor has to stand on its own. MasterChef South Africa Season 6 continues this Sunday at 6 p.m. only on ETV.
Gauteng provincial government is working to expand public services such as health and education, create jobs, and fight crime. MEC of Finance and Economic Development, Lebogang Maile, will outline how these and other programs will be funded when he presents the 2026-27 budget to the legislature on Tuesday, 10th March at 10 a.m. Catch the budget live on all media platforms using hashtag Gauteng Budget 2026. This message is brought to you by Gauteng Provincial Government, growing Gauteng together.
To live wealthier, you need to be able to grow your assets. At Standard Bank Private, you get a team of internationally acclaimed financial experts to advise you on local and global investment strategies. Plus, being with a leader in home loans, you can start expanding your property portfolio. So, come live wealthier with Africa's best private bank. Apply online at standardbank.co.za. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Hi, John. Good day to you and all our compatriots. You know, John, I tell you, the police minister, Mr. Kachalia and all, he has failed dismally because he knows he has lied, in fact, knowing the police have done nothing. And now there the army comes in. And I'll tell you, the army itself, to ultimately, they'll be withdrawn over there, and such will continue on end. The only way, and it is known very well, whereby Mr. Cyril Pinocchio refuses to mention it, is to the return of the death penalty. That is the only ultimate that will bring peace to South Africa. Finish and clear. Pepilon Aldo.
Hi, John. So I stopped counting when I got to 62, and there was still more to go. But yeah, I think most of the active ones are about 24, those that I've interacted with this year. Work groups, church groups, family groups. But my absolute favorite has to be the complex, in the complex where I stay. I always wait for the weekend just to catch up on this one because it keeps me very entertained.
I mean, I'm in 2 WhatsApp groups that have to do with, let's just say, residential matters. I might be in a couple of others as well. And yeah, sometimes you like to hear from people about something that's being done. But boy, it can. I've never managed to chew on the popcorn. Possibly because I'm grinding my teeth. I mean, some of the stuff that goes on in the space of either collective or neighborhood living can be really quite jarring. This is from Molloy. The question we asked, by the way, how many WhatsApp groups are you in? Which one do you actually get some pleasure out of and look forward to seeing what's been posted? And which ones have you muted or are considering doing just that? Molloy says, 2 times my kids groups, 1 former school group, 2 gents groups, and 2 family groups. And says, I enjoy and appreciate 2 groups only. 1, the gents from my church, and 2, my house group with all my kids and my wife. Okay, 20 minutes to 4. WhatsApp us. We don't have to be part of a group. Just send us a WhatsApp, please, on 072 702 1702. Time for sport.
EWN Sport.
Hi, Tolakele. Cricket underway. How are we doing?
Well, John, it's not been a great start for South Africa, who are currently 16 for the loss of 2. That's in their T20 World Cup semi-final against New Zealand. Currently at the crease is Aiden Markram on 2 alongside Deville Brevis on 4. The wickets to fall are Ryan Rickleton for a duck and Quinton de Kock for 10. Switching over to the Betway Premiership, where the losing run at Kaizer Chiefs continued last night after they suffered a 1-0 defeat away to Richards Bay. The Glamour Boys have now lost 4 of their last 5 games in all competitions, while it was the Natal Rich Boys' first League win of 2026. And with Amakosi failing to create chances during the 90 minutes, co-coach Cedric Kaze admits that at the moment nothing is going in their favour.
I believe that we
were not good enough offensively or defensively as well. We were not good enough probably to lose Miguel in the warm-up and Zita with the suspension of Zita, and you have to change the whole defense. It wasn't ideal, and I think that's mostly that cost us the game.
Miguel Cardoso, Rilem Fukeng and Gloli Lelepo have won the Bedway Premiership Monthly Awards for January and February. Cardoso wins Coach of the Month after guiding Mamelodi Sundowns to 4 wins from their 4 matches. That includes the top-of-the-table 2-1 success over Orlando Pirates. Mufukeng and Lelepo win the Player and Girl of the Month award, respectively. Switching over to the Premier League, where Arne Slot has echoed Virgil van Dijk's statement that Liverpool was slow and predictable in their 2-1 defeat to Wolves. A late Andre goal condemned the Reds to defeat, and they've now lost 5 games thanks to 90-minute goals this season, the most of any side in a single campaign in the competition's history.
Finishing off those moments and pick the right player in front of goal when you arrive. So slow or predictable are words that I can understand he uses. But if you want to go faster, you have to be able to dominate situations on the sides because then something can happen. And we struggled to dominate on the sides today.
And Luke Donald will captain Europe at the 2027 Ryder Cup in Ireland as he bids to become the first man to lead a side to 3 consecutive wins in the competition. He previously led Europe to victory in the biennial golf tournament against the United States in Rome and New York. Tola Gilimganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
EWN Traffic.
Okay, if you're heading down the N1 South, I think it is, you're going to experience some difficulties. Let's get the precise details of those difficulties, though. Kumotso Munyai joins us for traffic.
Thank you so much, John. In Randburg, there does seem to be some congestion there on the N1 South. This is due to 2 accidents, one before Malibongwe Drive and one after. And it is causing some really heavy traffic backing up all the way from Rivonia Road. We do also have a voice note from a 702 lander confirming this.
702, the highway N1 South. There's an accident after Malibongwe. The highway is literally closed at this point in time. Sanral has closed it with cones. It looks like they might be opening 1 lane soon. Traffic is backed up way past Winnie Mandela. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Accident in 1 South after Malibongwe. Highway is closed.
Baya donkey for that one. In Sandton, there's also bumper-to-bumper traffic on Grayston Drive. This is between Rivonia Road and Catherine Street. And leaving Lenasia, traffic is at a crawl. This is on the Golden Highway between the R554 and Fund Valley Road, and it is due to road works. If you do come across any other traffic on your side or even an update, please feel free to send us a WhatsApp on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app. You're now listening to 702 Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Brought to you by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
You're with John Perlman
on 702.
Coming up for 3:45 on 702 Drive, still to come, we're going to pay tribute to Musia Terra Lakota at about 4:15. We'll be in conversation with Dr. Seth Cooper, and we're chatting to him because he takes us right back to the very, very early days of Musia Lakota's political life. We're talking about the Black Consciousness years, both of them leading figures in the South African Student Organization, 1974, 1975. Obviously, the tributes, as they've come in through the day, have focused a lot on his role as a leader in the United Democratic Front, his contribution as part of the cabinet in South Africa and as Premier of the Free State, and then the rather more complicated story of the founding of the Congress of the People, COPE. We thought we'd go further back into Musia Lakota's political life in his mid-20s. That's coming up at about 4:10. It's 14 minutes now to 4.
John is on X.
At John Perlman.
So, Tolakele WhatsApp groups, are you a member of a lot of them? Do you enjoy any of them? And are there some, I see an eye roll that suggests no, not very many. Are there any that you've either muted or said, I'm out of here?
94 95.9% of my WhatsApp groups are muted and archived.
Yes.
Just because I don't have the capacity to be keeping up to date with all of that. I'll deal with it when I need to. My top favorite WhatsApp group is the one that features me and my two besties, because we just post like all our nonsense. I feel like in all the voice notes, everybody has like a squad WhatsApp group where it's just like jokes and making fun of each other. The title of it is even called Debaucherous Weekend.
Okay.
Because we were supposed to
Sounds
go away.
promising, yeah.
We were supposed to go away one weekend and we never did, but we just also never changed the title of that one. And then my second favorite WhatsApp group is the Chankura WhatsApp group. In that one, John, all we do is run a stock file. All people do in that one is just post proof of payment.
Oh.
That's the only thing we ever discuss. Did you deposit my money? When are you going to deposit my money? That's the only thing we discuss.
So a WhatsApp group for auditors.
Yes.
I've never heard of that before. Sounds good though. Where's the money? Show me the money. Posted on the group. 702 Drive. It's 13 minutes to 4.
Drive home with John Perlman
On 702, let's walk the talk.
Yeah, so as Tolakela said, not off to a particularly good start at the cricket. South Africa 22 for 2, 3 overs and 3 balls bowled, and we almost lost a third wicket. Fortunately, Aiden Markram dropped. His score is still on just 7. So that's a little bit of a let-off. Hopefully that guides us into a very, very positive space where we start thinking, well, this might be our day after all. We'll keep you posted. 12 minutes to 4.
You're with John Perlman
On 702.
To the Madlanga Commission we go now, where the focus is very much on organized crime. Major General Shibiri has been giving evidence. When I watched in the morning, by the way, he appeared to be confident because he was largely speaking to things that were in his own statement. And I do remember saying at the time and saying to colleagues, he's a little tentative in the beginning, grew more relaxed, grew more confident, grew a lot more confident, talking about things he'd done that reflected well on his role as a senior policeman. And I did say, well, maybe he would need to take stock perhaps after lunch, when the focus will come in very much on issues like his relationship, for example, with Kat Matlala. We're very much in those waters now, and Thabiso Goba has got a very good sense as to whether Major General Shibiri is managing to swim or not. Thabiso, very good afternoon then. Focus on Kat Matlala and that relationship, and presumably there's plenty more to come. How's the General doing?
Good afternoon, John. I mean, you put it very perfectly, John, because this is the sort of pattern we've seen at the Madlanga Commission. The first day is usually the most easiest one for people testifying at the Madlanga Commission, because they're just giving the evidence in chief, and the evidence leaders and the commissioners don't usually sort of cross-examine that evidence. So during the first day, you just respond to those allegations, you give your side to the story. And that's basically what's been happening so far, where the suspended head of organized crime at SAPS, Major General Richard Shibiri, has been responding to some of those allegations that have been made by previous witnesses against him. And obviously at the heart of the issue here is his relationship with the suspected crime cartel boss, Vusimuzi Kat Matlala. And you remember, John, that there was by witness F, there was testimony by witness F that Richard Shibiri intervened to get suspected or to get entertainment blogger Musa Kawula arrested because Musa Kawula had posted some private stuff about the private life of Vusimuzi Kat Matlala.
Right.
So Richard Shibiri has sort of clarified that, saying that he was contacted by Vusimuzi Kat Matlala, saying that Musa Kawula was trying to extort him. And what Shibiri said, he said that he advised Mr. Matlala to open a criminal case, and he referred him to a Sergeant Faninkosi. Sergeant Faninkosi is also a witness F. And then that was that nature of that interaction when it comes to Mr. Kawula. But there was also, John, another very serious allegation here that Major General Richard Shibiri received 80,000 rand from Vusimuzi Kat Matlala. Now, Shibiri has also addressed that, saying that in 2024, his son got into a car accident and his insurance claim was rejected. And because obviously now that puts him in a very financial difficulty, he relayed this to Vusimuzi Matlala, who loaned him the 80,000 rand. And I do have to say, John, that Shibiri says that he's known Mr. Kat Matlala for a very long time. He's known him as a businessman, and he said that all our interactions between him and Mr. Matlala have been very social at nature. And obviously, John, he's not the first senior police
Yes, I was going to say.
to come at the commission and say that they had a very social relationship with Vusimuzi Matlala. So it does seem like Vusimuzi Matlala, who we remember got a tender for around close to 400 million. It does seem like he was very famous and was very social with some of the people in very senior position within SAPS. But as you said, John, for now, at this stage, Mr. Richard Shibiri just putting his evidence in chief, but obviously tomorrow and over the next couple of days, we are going to see that cross-examination, and we are going to see the evidence leaders actually really poke holes into some of his testimony.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing for me, and I'm glancing at it right now, and I've been dipping in and out, obviously not watching as closely as you, Tabiso. But for example, he seemed to say when asked that he had no idea that there were any significant investigations around the business practices and possible relationships to other police officers of Kat Matlala. And one senior police officer after another has said, no, we were completely unaware of this. And some of them have gone the legal route and say, well, no charges had actually yet been laid. And when they were, the other popular story in that circumstance is often, well, I did a gradual withdrawal from him. But what was Richard Shibiri? I mean, he is in that part of the police that should know as much as the police know at all about organized crime. And yet he's arguing that there was nothing about going on in regard to this particular individual, Vusimuzi Matlala, that made him, at the very least, cautious.
Yes, I mean, John, you can understand that there is a certain element of truth here, but obviously we do have to take into consideration that we are dealing with the people who are in senior SABs and who obviously have much more intelligence than obviously normal people do, or even journalists do. But for a very long time, Mr. Vusimuzi Matlala has been someone who's obviously operated in the shadows.
Yes.
He's not been someone who's been very well known, maybe in the media or maybe even as a tender tycoon or even in the political space. So Mr. Richard Shibiri, he's also said, as also General Sibia, Macheng, and also other senior police officers who've testified at the Matlala Commission, that the only time that they sort of knew about him was when that Babita Diokoran, the former accounting at the Tembisa Hospital, when that story came out that she was assassinated for looking into some of those tenders at the Tembisa Hospital, and that Vusimuzi Matlala may have been involved in some of those irregular tenders at the Tembisa Hospital. Mr. Richard Shibiri telling the commission that he only became aware that Mr. Matlala has some links to criminality around January 2024, but he's saying that before that, he only understood Mr. Matlala to just be a businessman. He was in private security, and obviously he had met him through an acquaintance and some mutual friends, and he would see him at some social gatherings, and obviously some of these social gatherings that included the engagement party for the son of the Deputy National Police Commissioner, General Shadrack Sibia, where Vusimuzi Matlala was there along with other senior police officials.
Did he give any background or context as to why he would have asked Vusimuzi Matlala for this loan? Because my understanding is Major Generals' salaries are pretty good. They've just had a 5.5% salary bump in 2025. I would have thought that he would have had relationships with the bank that would certainly put him in a position. I'm just looking here. Average salary for senior management in the South African Police Service is 1.4 million rand a year. So not someone who would struggle to engage with other potential providers of credit. Did he explain why he went to Mr. Madlala for this loan?
Well, no, what he's only told us is that this is something that was he raised with Madlala as a friend, saying that, he's just in a bit of need of money for his son's car because he wants to repair it. But as you said, John, this is a man who at the time, he still is a major general, one of the highest ranking positions within SAPS. And obviously with that very high ranking position also comes a very decent salary, but also some allowances and overtime. But I think, John, Mr. Richard Shibiri, he's obviously testified about he took a lot of favors from a lot of people.
Yes.
Before that, he's also spoken about his relationship with a certain businessman, Mr. Vusindlala, who's also been implicated in the Madlala Commission of trying to influence some police officers. And he said that he used to hang out at the hotel of Mr. Vusindlala, and he used to hang out at the private lounge, and he would be hosted there. So it does seem like Mr. Shibiri, he's obviously very receptive to taking those free favors from some of these very controversial people. And even as a police officer, you'd think that obviously he'd be a bit more circumspect of the favors that he's taking from these people. But it does seem like what he's testified so far, whether it's staying at private lounges and hotels of business people or taking 80,000 rand loans from Vusumuzikat Madlala, it does seem like Mr. Shibiri was obviously an unwilling participant.
Yes.
And he was obviously just enamored by the selfless love from these people who just wanted to offer him favors in nothing for return except for his friendship.
Tabiso Gorba, keeping an eye on the Madlanga Commission. This one's going to go for quite a few days, I would imagine. Just by the way, I've been checking up on these salary figures. Do you know that we have 146 major generals at the moment? Let me just give context. This is a story from 2024, so those numbers would have shifted. The average salary, and there was a bump, as I mentioned last year, 5.5%, but the average salary for major generals is 1.49 million rand a year. That's before deductions, but there are benefits as well. And the total bill for major generals and brigadiers, if you happen to be interested, 1 billion rand a year in salaries. Brigadiers, by the way, we are not short of those at all. We have 632 at the time this information was gathered back in May 2024. 702 Drive.
702 Afternoons
with Relebogile Mabota, 1 to 3 p.m.
Conversation around dog psychology with licensed psychologist Dr. David Consalves. There's some people that predators, scammers, abusers will never try. And I don't know what it is they see.
Perpetrators can often tell who has someone in their corner and who doesn't. There's a certain confidence that comes from, there is someone in my corner. And they read that confidence, body language, language that they use, where this person is connected to someone who cares and who has some form of influence.
702 Afternoons
with Relebogile Mabota.
Let's walk the talk.
Meet Tato Magate, CMO of Koitek, proving that South African tech can take on the world. Tato, why was Telkom Business the right call for your team?
Bottom line was connectivity and ensuring that we have the right service provider.
With Telkom Business Fiber, Koitek seamlessly connects local innovations with international manufacturing.
Get Stream Connect Fiber from just 399 Rand per month. Call 10213 or check telkom.co.za. T's and C's apply. Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
It's your last chance to save with the Checkers Extravaganza. Save extra on deals like Bacoma Wheat Bix, 1.35 kgs for $69.99. Everfresh Long Life Milk, 1 litre 6-pack, 2 for 189 Rand. And Omo Auto Liquid Detergent 2 litre or capsules 20-pack, any 2 for 199 Rand. Save 51 Rand. Valid until 8 March, only at Checkers, Checkers Hyper, or shop on 6060.
I heard she's got a recruiter team working 24/7.
That one, she has a secret supply of talent.
I knew it. She's definitely keeping a secret from us.
Nothing mysterious, guys. It's SA Youth, South Africa's largest youth online recruitment platform. Fast to post, effortless to use, and effective every time.
Recruit on the portal to potential. sayouth.co.za, powering South Africa's youth workforce.
Driving the conversation on 702 Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Powered by Telkom Business. Possible begins here. This is EWN.
The name of controversial blogger Musa Kaula resurfaces at Madlanga Commission, and Musia Lakota remembered for his love for South Africa. Good afternoon, I'm Bali Dlamini. The Madlanga Commission has heard how controversial entertainment blogger Musa Kaula allegedly attempted to extort money from suspected crime boss Vusimuzi Matlala. Kaula allegedly wanted the money in exchange for not posting details about his private life on social media. This is according to suspended head of organised crime at the SAPS, Richard Shibiri, who is testifying before the commission today. Shibiri says the extortion attempts took place in September 2024.
Interaction arose when Mr. Matlala contacted me, narrated that he believed he was being subjected to an attempted extortion. He informed me that a person identifying himself as a journalist had communicated with him, indicating that information concerning Mr. Matlala's private life was allegedly being supplied to Mr. Musa Kaula.
Shibiri says he advised Matlala to open a case with police, referring him to Sergeant Fani Nkosi. Shibiri also denied ever reaching out to Kaula, as alleged in the testimony of Witness F.
Yeah, it's not me. I don't know him. I never met him. I don't have his number. He doesn't have my number. And I don't use the name Chomi. I never used that one.
Former senior prosecutor Michael Mashocha has accused forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan of interfering in the operations of the Independent Police Investigative Directorate. He says the police watchdog was under O'Sullivan's control and accused him of impersonating IPID officials. Mashocha, who left the National Prosecuting Authority in 2024, was giving evidence before Parliament's ad hoc committee investigating allegations of corruption in the criminal justice system. Babalondenze reports.
Michael Mashocha was invited to the committee to give evidence relating to the case he was pursuing against Paul O'Sullivan and his former assistant, Sarah Jane Trent. Mashocha was requested to explain how the case against O'Sullivan, who was arrested for impersonating an IPID officer, was struck off the roll and never enrolled again. Mashocha says the case was delayed because of interference from O'Sullivan.
I place evidence before this honorable committee that the IPID investigation at that stage was not independent because it was infiltrated by and led by Mr. O'Sullivan and Sarah Jane Trent.
Mashocha says O'Sullivan later leveled allegations of state capture against him because he had made the decision to prosecute him for violating the IPID Act. O'Sullivan will return to the committee tomorrow. Babalondenze, Eyewitness News.
The TRC Cases Inquiry has heard about an alleged secret plan to stop apartheid-era prosecutions through legislation. Former director at the National Prosecuting Authority, Anton Ackerman, took the inquiry through the alleged plan during his testimony today. The inquiry was set up to probe delays in prosecuting apartheid-era crimes. The cases were referred to the NPA following hearings at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Dimakatso Leshoro has more.
Anton Ackerman testified that at the time he was preparing indictments against former security branch members when Jan Wegner told him about high-level discussions between the SANDF, SAPS, ANC leaders and former presidents F.W. de Klerk and Thabo Mbeki, where a political solution was agreed on to avoid further prosecutions. He stated that a new amnesty bill had been drafted that would allow the president to grant indemnity to those who made full disclosure of apartheid-era crimes. Ackerman Perlman told the commission he was unaware at the time of any so-called secret amnesty task team that was behind the proposal. He further alleged that Wagner warned him that if former security branch members were prosecuted, private prosecutions would be instituted against ANC figures. Dimakatsole Shoro, Eyewitness News.
We shift our focus to this now. Former COPE spokesperson Dennis Bloem has remembered the party's late leader, Musia Lakota, for his deep love for South Africa. The former MP died early this morning after battling an illness. Tributes have poured in from various political parties, describing him as a patriot. Bloem says Lakota genuinely wanted a South Africa that was equal and free.
He loved this country. That is what made him special. He loved the country, he loved the people of this country. He was a very brave person. He never think about himself. He was always thinking about the people of this country.
And the European Central Bank says artificial intelligence has only had minor effects on employment in Europe so far. Economists have been debating whether AI could put white-collar staff out of work, comparing more than 3,000 firms, some of which reported using AI and some not. The economists found no difference in terms of creating or cutting jobs. Firms that use AI particularly are 4% likelier to hire new staff than average, according to that report. The bank has also warned, though, that technology's future impact is still uncertain. Gold is trading at $5,190.96 an ounce. The rand is at 16.33 to the dollar, 21.84 to the pound, 19.01 to the euro, and Brent crude oil is at $81.40 a barrel.
In the traffic in Randburg, traffic remains congested on the N1 South just after Malibongwe Drive, and in Sandton there's bumper-to-bumper traffic on Grayston Drive between Rivonia Road and Catherine Street.
In your sport, unbeaten Proteas looking to advance to a second consecutive T20 World Cup final. Cedric Kaze calls for cool heads as Kaizer Chiefs lose again, and Arne Slot frustrated as slow and predictable Liverpool are beaten by Wolves.
A cloudy Thursday in store for Gauteng tomorrow, with scattered showers and thundershowers expected. Johannesburg drops to overnight lows of 17 degrees, peaking at 24. Pretoria 16 and 26, and Vereniging 15 and 26 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour, the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry has heard how controversial entertainment blogger Musa allegedly attempted to extort money from suspected crime boss Vusumuzi Kat Matlala.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
7:02.
Drive home with John Perlman.
John Perlman, 3 to 6 p.m.
On 92.7 and 106 FM. Let's walk the talk.
7:02 Drive, it's 9 minutes past 4. Welcome to the second hour of the show. It really is great to have you with us. I'm wondering, are you managing to keep up with the cricket? Do you have a TV on somewhere at work? Are you, like me, looking at the Crick Info app and keeping up with what's going on? My Crick Info app tells me we're 54 for 2. Aiden Markram, Deervald Brevis, both on 18. We're not scoring at any great speed, but at least we haven't lost more wickets after a really rather bad start. 7.2, I think, is the current run rate. Any way that you're sneaking a peek while you're watching at work, let me know about that. We asked you about WhatsApp groups, what you're members of, which ones you mute, which ones you enjoy. You can continue to share with us your thoughts on that. And many of you tackling the rather more serious issue of what's going on at the Madlanga Commission. Yet another senior police general saying, well, I knew Kat Matlala. Yes, we exchanged WhatsApp messages. Yes, I actually borrowed some money from him, but he was just a friend. And I had absolutely no idea that there were any police investigations of any kind into him. Make of that what you will. Make of it whatever you make of it, and give us a note on 072 702 1702. Still to come on the show, we're going to be looking at the shortage of building inspectors in Johannesburg and other issues related to that disaster out in Ormonde. Roy Mnisi, Executive Director at the Master Builder Association, is our guest after 5. Before that, we'll pay tribute to and look back on the life of Musia Lakota. Many of the tributes, and you heard some a moment ago with Mbali Dlamini, focused on his more contemporary political life. We're going to go right back to almost the very beginning of his political life, where in his mid-20s he became active in the Black Consciousness Aligned South African Student Organization. Someone who knew him well from that time, Dr. Saths Cooper, will be my guest in a moment. This is 702 Drive. It's 11 minutes past 4.
EWN Traffic.
EWN Traffic is brought to you by Outsurance. SMS out to 45142 now, and you could save on car insurance. If you don't, ask them for 500 Rand. At 12 minutes past 4, Kumoso Munyai, how are we looking? I say that with a little bit of trepidation, eh?
No need to be fearful, John. We'll start in Pretoria. You can anticipate some delays on Mphahlele Drive between the R80 and Van der Walt Road. In Sandton, there's been an accident on the N3 South. This is just before Marlborough Drive, and it is slowing down traffic. If you are leaving Sandton, traffic is at a crawl on the N1 North. This is between Allendale Road and New Road. That accident in Randburg on the N1 South, just after Malibongwe Drive, is still causing some slow-moving traffic. So alternatively, you may use the William Nicol Drive or other local routes. If you do come across any other traffic, you know the number 072-702-1702, or send us a tweet on X at EWN Traffic.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app. The Outsurance pointsmen know that every car on the road carries a story. Like a businesswoman on the way to the airport after sleeping through her alarm. Bags in the back, boarding pass on the dashboard. She prays she'll make her flight.
Hope I make it.
The Outsurance pointsmen know it's not just a car in traffic. It's the potential closing of a big deal. Every story is different and every story matters. That's why the Outsurance pointsmen have been doing what they do since 2005. In proud partnership with 702. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP.
Stay with 702 Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Brought to you by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
You're with John Perlman on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
702 Drive, welcome back. Let's reflect now on the life and legacy of Musia Lakota, but not before we at 702 Afternoon Drive offer our condolences to everybody who may have been his friend, a member of his family, a close political comrade, or just someone who met him and really liked him. You heard a nice tribute a little bit earlier to this man from Mandy Wiener. You can pick that up on primemediaplus.com. That's where you can pick up anything really from the Midday Report or anything else from the 702 day. But we're going to go back, quite a distance back, in his political life, the life of Musia Lakota, all the way to when he was actually a student activist in his mid-20s. And for that, we're joined by Dr. Saths Cooper, Black Consciousness leader, starting from that time as well. Past president of the International Union of Psychological Science, the Pan-African Psychology Union, and the Psychological Society of South Africa. Dr. Cooper, welcome, and thanks very much for your time. You and Saths Cooper would have worked together in the South African Student Organization. It was formed in 1969, Steve Biko as its founding president. You would have got to know him well, but first impressions of this man with whom you would work so closely, we invite you to share them with us, and good afternoon to you.
Hi, John. And yes, my first impressions are very personable and expressive, and somebody who was quick to laugh, but also somebody who was quick to take exception.
Yes.
And raise issues that he felt were urgent, and was one of those in 1972 who was expelled from the University of the North, now University of Limpopo, after Abraham Tiro was expelled and the whole student body was expelled. And at the SASO conference that July, he was one of those who, with the late Keith Mokwape and a few others, proposed that SASO think of military training, which of course we couldn't do because we were a student organization.
Yes.
And we were in the throes of just founding the Black People's Convention. And Steve Biko was one of those who said, well, you're jeopardizing what we're doing here. And if you want to do that kind of stuff, you know where to go. So don't make us
Yes.
the vehicle. Fast forward, he became national organizer of SASO, the South African Students Organization. And in 73, the beginning of 73, we had the spate of bannings. The first of us, Steve Biko, Bani Pichana, Harry Nengwekulu, I myself, I was 22 then, banned, house arrested, and so on. So each one of us holding a position in SASO or the Black People's Convention, when we were banned, we were replaced by somebody else. And that was Lakota in SASO as national organizer
Right.
in 74. And he was there when we did the Viva Frelimo rallies.
At Curry's Fountain.
Curry's Fountain
Right.
at Turfloop. And he wasn't fully aware of all the issues that took place, but was there. And when those abortive rallies occurred, the police charged the crowd at Curry's Fountain, arrested various people. Lakota, unfortunately, was at the SASO offices, and whoever was in the SASO offices that day in Durban was arrested. He was arrested and eventually charged. I mean, all of us were arrested, held under the notorious Section 6 of the Terrorism Act incommunicado. The current president was one of the first to be arrested in Petersburg, in the police station near the university. And he stood trial. He was one of the co-accused in the SASO BPC trial. I was accused number one, the state versus Escupa and 8 others. Muntu Mieza, the primary face of that, was number 2, and Lakota was number 3.
And went to Robben Island for 8 years. So a gap in your relationship over that time, and I don't know if it would be fair to say, Dr. Cooper, perhaps a divergence in the political paths that you took in ideological terms. Did you keep a relationship with him, and how did you deal with the, if you did, with your very different views of South Africa's present, past, and future?
Well, the views weren't different. The issues, the actual incident that made us part ways was the SASO leadership in prison felt very strongly that he was doing things which were untoward and so on, and we should act against him. And when we discussed this, they were very adamant. I tried to dissuade them from doing this because we were held in isolation at that time, but they felt it was something we had to do because tensions were getting high and personalities and fights broke out and so on, unfortunately. But
right.
So it was I who had to give him the news that he was expelled, which he took with some shock but grace. And we retained a friendship, but then informed the other political organizations. Walter Sisulu said, please don't do this, and so on. But weeks later, he had applied to the ANC for membership and was accepted. And that's history.
So just a final thought from you, Dr. Cooper, and the reason we wanted to go back to the early days. I know that as a young man in high school, he was already demonstrating his political dissatisfaction with the state of things in South Africa. But we thought it was important to look along the full timeline of a life, because you can either kind of start with Cope as if it was the beginning. How do you measure his contribution? Because he did so many different things. We've barely touched on his role in the UDF, and I think his contribution in government is well known. But a summary from you to close.
He was a revolutionary that found his way into politics when we had the democratic dispensation and rose to high office in the ANC. The sadness is that he was pushed into forming COPE. I don't think it was of his own making, but he did stand then, to his credit, against the 100% Zulu component of what was happening at the time. And remember that Gacha Buthelezi did the same at that time. He also was Minister of Defense when Gacha Buthelezi was acting president. And if others didn't intercede, they were going to... They were likely to annex Lesotho, because he felt, as a Sotho-speaking person, Lesotho is part of South Africa. The rest is history.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saths Cooper, Black Consciousness Leader, joining us on 702 Drive. You may have particular memories of Musia Lakota. Give us a call on 011 883 0702 and 072 702 1702. 22 minutes past 4.
John is on X
At John Perlman.
Well, just keeping an eye on the cricket. I have to say it's not going particularly well, people. We are 77 for 4, exactly halfway through the game. Devalt Brevis is still there, 34 off 25. But we've just lost David Miller, who made just 6. Aiden Markram, Ryan Rickleton, and the two openers. Aiden, what am I saying? David Miller, Quinton de Kock, Ryan Rickleton and Aiden Markram are the 4 batsmen who are already out. 23 minutes past 4.
You're with John Perlman
on 702.
Right, let's get into this issue now. Now, many of you, if you can get to a TV, are actually watching the cricket on TV. Now, there are a couple of things going on that we're going to pull together with our next guest. On the one hand, the fact that the DSTV package offers sport is a major reason why many people remain subscribed. That's the one element. The other is that the new owners of MultiChoice, Canal Plus, are demonstrating a willingness to start cutting back on the costs that they believe are actually undermining the future prospects of the company. And in sporting terms, the fact that there was no Winter Olympics televised was an early example of that. And then out in the wide world of the sport that so many of you actually love to watch, and why you actually pay money to subscribe to DSTV, is the fact that the Premier League in the UK is talking about all sorts of other ways of sharing their product with fans, and most of those ideas do not involve any kind of relationship with the TV company at all. They're talking about what they call a direct-to-consumer platform. So it's a hot mix, and it would be a mess, but fortunately we don't have we have the very right guest to take you through the confusion. Ngobile Ndlovu is the founder of Cash and Sport Research and Advisory. Ngobile, we're going to do a lot of gazing into the future, and I appreciate your willingness to join us in that. But are we going to see fundamental changes to the way in which people access sport that might call into question, for example, the business model of DSTV?
John, sorry that the Proteas had you choking up there before you introduced me, but yes, I think we will see some changes with regards to how people consume sport. Firstly, primarily because Canal Plus bought MultiChoice for about 55 billion rand, and they're looking to reclaim their money, and part of their biggest cost center is sports rights. So they'll be looking at sports rights and saying, well, do we need that? How many people across the continent are actually watching it? Because people often forget that just because MultiChoice was born in South Africa, it's no longer a South African company, it's continental. So they have to have, cognizance of what viewing patterns are across the continent, and that's what will determine what sports rights they purchase, and ultimately, whether you now have to get a streaming app to then watch something like the Winter Olympics, which will not be broadcast on Canal Plus platforms and multi-choice platforms as an extension.
What are the global trends that are going to have bearing here? I mean, I referred in the most simplistic of ways to what the Premier League is talking about, but is this a conversation that's happening in the boardrooms and corridors of BT Sports, Sky Sports, and others as well, that the intermediation of TV companies is not going to remain the way it's always been?
Yeah, these are conversations that are happening all over the world. And in fact, in most parts of the US, the West and Europe, there's been a big shift towards streaming. And then they found that people don't like to have too many streaming platforms, and now some of them are consolidating into one. So there's a lot of confusion with regards to how exactly they're going to go. We are only starting the conversation now with regards to kind of splitting. We a very unique position in the fact that we've been outrageously spoiled by the fact that you have a platform that provides you everything under one roof, and for one subscription. So we're shifting towards the streaming, the advent of streaming, but we just have a problem in that in Africa we don't have the facilities and infrastructure to a point where every household has broadband connectivity and can support a streaming only service. I think it's going to take a while before we adopt what we're seeing in Europe and the West, because we just don't have the infrastructure to do it.
And just finally, Nqobile, I mean the timeline on these changes, presumably it's not all going to change at once. So Springbok Rugby may not change in terms of alternative offerings to, for example, the Premier League. But can we say inevitably the day of sitting on your couch with the remote in one hand and a cup of whatever it is you like in the other, and just trawling to see what you might find, are probably numbered, and that you're going to have to choose what you like and you're going to have to pay for it? Is that inevitable?
It is inevitable. I can tell you now that the Springboks and SA Rugby are considering a streaming platform and are looking to register a streaming platform. They're not going to do it immediately. I think in terms of timelines, we still have maybe about 2 to 5 years before we start seeing big rights holders like SA Rugby and Cricket South Africa and others setting up their own streaming platforms, which would be essentially a standalone from what you were seeing with DSTV and MultiChoice. But I do think it is inevitable eventually. However, Canal Plus does have a plan to try and have to try and be the one-stop shop for everything. You're going to soon see Netflix on Canal Plus and other services on one platform. If they then see that there is possible value in keeping, and including some of these other, smaller rights in that, then they'll do it. But it is inevitable eventually that we're not going to be able to see everything on one platform, and that things will be fragmented.
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe it's a brave new world. As someone, as I said, who likes to sit on the couch, there's some appointment viewing and then there's some channel hopping. I'd be very sad to lose the latter. We'll watch it unfold. It's 29 minutes past 4. We thank Nqobile Ndlovu for his time. He is founder of Cash and Sport Research and Advisory.
EWN Business.
Well, Stephen Curtis, you don't get it all back at once, but certainly a better day.
Indeed, John. I think there's a bit of buying the dip. People also weighing different reports, suggestions in the New York Times, I think it was, that the Iranian Secret Service were reaching out to the CIA, looking at some kind of tentative peace, angry denials, I think, on all of that. So all of that having a bit of an impact on markets. Not everywhere, though. The JSE All Share is up 1.67%, 121,969, much better than where we were yesterday. Financials are up 0.79, resources up 1.2, industrials up 1.2, and resources up nearly 3.3%. Gold is stronger, platinum is stronger, the rand is stronger too to the dollar. Hasn't got back everything, as you say. It's not like this everywhere, by the way. I mean, in South Korea, They had their steepest fall in history. Their Kospi index, that's their benchmark, it was down over 12%, which is really quite astonishing. The last time it was anything close to that was actually September the 11th, 2001. So it just does tell you how big this is for markets. Platinum miners up a lot higher, and obviously people sort of taking a deep breath, buying the dip, and sort of trying to pass what's going to happen in platinum demand and cars. So Northam is up over 9%, Valterra up nearly 7%, Sibanye up 5%, Implats up nearly 5% as well. Interesting, John, that some of our consumer shares, Boxer, Pick n Pay and Truworths, all up by around 3%. Now, Shoprite had a very strong update yesterday. They were still down a little bit. I saw some commentary suggesting that, in fact, with Shoprite like this, they can only be taking market share from Pick n Pay and Spar. Spar are down 3%. Pick n Pay and Boxer are up 3%. Very interesting that. Aspen, after their update yesterday, they're up nearly 4%. I think people seeing the value in that business at the moment. Woolworths today reporting their margins under a little bit of pressure. Their turnover up 5.4%. Headline earnings up nearly 10% for the 6 months to the end of December. And Cashbuild able to increase headline earnings by 16%. Still a tough environment for them. Alpha Min is down nearly 10%. Sasol, John, interesting, because oil prices still high, down 5%. And Tungela, they've also increased recently. They're down 3.39%, while Momentum is down 1.46%. In the US, stock index futures edging slightly higher. That's partly because of that report that there might be some kind of end through the Iranian intelligence agencies and the CIA to the conflict around Iran. At the same time, also suggestions that Donald Trump might try and stabilize oil markets. They've got the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in the US. They could bring that online. Gold, $5,177.17 an ounce. Platinum, $2,167.29. Brent crude only $2 less than it was yesterday, $81.23. And then the rand, yesterday was around, 1660 to the dollar. It's 1637 now, 1904 to the euro, 2189 to the British pound. Stephen Groothuis, EWN Business.
Thanks, Stephen. Let's get the latest eyewitness news now to go with that business report. What's happening in the world of politics? Here's Mbali Dlamini.
Thanks, John. Good afternoon. Well, the first meeting of a parliamentary presidency committee has ended in a stalemate over the process to elect a chairperson. The committee sat for the first time today since it was established last year. The committee is tasked with playing an oversight role in the presidency. During the sitting today, 3 nominations were made for the chairperson position, but it was the DA's nomination of its chief whip, George Mikalakis, that caused proceedings to stall. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
Today's meeting got off to a rocky start over whether alternate members of the 11-member committee were allowed to vote for the chairperson. A caucus break was called to iron out procedural matters, only for members to be tripped up by the DA's chief whip, George Mikalakis, seconding his nomination proposed by his deputy, Baxolile Nodada, to chair the committee. The ANC nominated its deputy chief whip, Doris Bapane, for the job, while the EFF nominated the MK party's newly appointed chief whip, Mabato Mokoena Zondi. Bapane received the most votes with 5, Mokoena Zondi 4 and Mikalakis 2. After a second pause in proceedings, Committee Secretary Mvaba Dumezweni said while the House rules did not appear to prohibit Mikalakis from supporting his nomination, he did not feel comfortable to proceed. MPs have called for the meeting to resume later this week, with members split over whether voting should take place from scratch or that a determination is made from the votes already cast. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
The ANC in the Western Cape has welcomed the adoption of a conduct committee report confirming that Premier Alan Winde breached the legislature's code of conduct. The report found that Winde failed to disclose sponsored foreign travel to the United States, contravening mandatory disclosure provisions. The ANC says this confirms that the matter was not political but a clear compliance failure. The party says non-disclosure in a constitutional democracy amounts to secrecy and undermines accountability. Ntutuzelo Nene has more.
The ANC in the Western Cape Provincial Legislature says the requirement to declare sponsored trip is a safeguard designed to ensure transparency and public trust. The ANC's Khalid Syed says when such disclosures do not occur, it raises serious concerns about compliance and ethical obligation. He adds that it amounts to secrecy and undermines the rules of scrutiny that exist to hold public representatives operatives accountable.
This is particularly concerning when it involves the Premier, the first citizen of our province, who is expected to be the custodian of integrity and ethical governance.
The Premier spokesperson Regan Thor says the Premier disputes the finding and will appeal it. Ndutuzelo Nene, Eyewitness News.
And more than 100 aid trucks have crossed the Egyptian side of the Gaza-Rafah border crossing. According to reports, the convoy is carrying humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. The initiative is part of ongoing efforts as the national mechanism for coordinating aid to Gaza. The humanitarian aid includes food, relief supplies, as well as fuel products to operate hospitals and vital facilities. A cloudy Thursday in store for Gauteng tomorrow with scattered showers and thundershowers expected. Lows of between 15 and 17 degrees and highs of between 24 and 26.
Leaving Sandton, there's slow-moving traffic. This is on the N1 North between Allendale Road and New Road. And in Protea Glen, there's bumper-to-bumper traffic on the N12 West. This is from R554 and the R558.
A top story in EWN, the first meeting of a parliamentary presidency committee has ended in a stalemate over the process to elect a chairperson.
Clement Maniatella.
Weekday mornings,
9 to 12.
9 to 12.
What's currently taking place in the Middle East and trying to get a sense of what the French position is there.
We really regret the fact that international law is not being respected because it will have a long-term effect everywhere in the world. No one in my country can be saddened by the passing of the Iranian dictator. That's absolutely clear. We're talking about someone who has been butchering his own people for years and years and years.
David Martineau is the ambassador of France to South Africa, Lesotho and Malawi.
Clement Maniatella.
9 to 12 on 702.
Stop and think. Will you survive the AI revolution or thrive? Regenesis students are thriving. 11 cutting-edge schools, 111 countries. World-class team of 1,111 with one mission, awakening your potential. Choose from law, business, technology, AI, health, economics, entrepreneurship, public management, skills academy, and digital Regenesis. Undergraduate, postgraduate, upskilling, customized corporate programs. The question isn't, can you afford to enroll? It's, can you afford not to? Enroll now. Regenesis.net. Achieve your dreams.
For Mamotsatsi and Kensani of Design News, a beautiful room starts with a rock-solid connection. Tell us what was slowing down your growth.
It would have to be slow network coverage.
Now, Telkom Business Fiber lets the team process large renders while the landline keeps supplier calls coming in.
Get Call Light Fiber from 655 Rand per month and unlimited VoIP 1 from 99 Rand per month. Call 10213 or click telkom.co.za. T's and C's apply. Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
Let's hear from Al, owner of Johnson's Cable, why it pays to switch to OUTsurance Business Insurance.
I thought it was going to be difficult to switch to OUTsurance Business Insurance. Switching was so quick and easy. I'm happy with the premium that I'm paying now.
For electrical, tradesman services, and all other businesses, get a quote today and see why it pays to switch to OUTsurance Business Insurance. Visit outsurance.co.za or call 08600 60,000 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
What do you call someone who thinks outside the box? Creative. But what about someone who codes the box, brands it, sells it, rebrands it, and leads a team that reinvents it? That's a Red and Yellow graduate. Apply now to Unleash Remarkable with Red and Yellow Creative School of Business, a member of Honoris United Universities.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Hi, John. Shortage of inspectors. I doubt that's the only problem. Our councillors, our municipality managers, our Metro Police, our SAPS, what are they doing? We are now complaining or talking about the building in Omonde, but what about all the informal settlements that are mushrooming all over our communities? The bylaws are there. Why don't we look into that? Why are we allowing lawlessness in our country? And when things go wrong, that's only then that we react, and so comes out. we're going to do this and that. No, John. Anonymous in Kagiso.
Keep those coming, please, on 011 883 0702 and 072 702 1702. 20 to 5, sports time.
EWN Sport.
Tola Kele, very good afternoon. Take us to Calcutta, please.
Well, John, South Africa are now 101 for the loss of 5. That's in the 14th over of their T20 World Cup semi-final against New Zealand. At the creases, Marco Jansen on 17 alongside Tristan Stubbs on 7. Their partnership is now worth 24 runs. In the last hour, the wickets to fall are Aiden Markram, Devout Brevis and David Miller for 18, 34 and 6 respectively, while Rachin Ravindra and Cole McConchy have taken 2 wickets each. Switching over to football, where CAF will announce a decision on WAFCON 2026 in the next 48 hours amid uncertainty around Morocco's hosting of the tournament. With just 13 days to go until the proposed kickoff, whether or not it will go ahead hangs in the balance, with CAF saying they've held several discussions with the matter receiving urgent and high-level attention. Switching over to the Betway Premiership, where the top 2 return to action this evening as Orlando Pirates travel to Polokwane City while Mamelodi Sundowns host Golden Arrows. Jaden Adams has been a revelation this calendar year, and he's discussed his growing role within the Brazilians' ranks.
Fortunately, I got the chance in the new year to showcase my talent again, and I took the chance with both hands. I just do my job, play for the team, and I just want to help the team get good results and fight for the league and for the Champions League.
Kaizer Chiefs' top 8 hopes hit a speed bump, having lost their 4th game in their last 5 fixtures as they went down 1-0 to Richards Bay last night. Cedric Kaizer has called for patience and calm from supporters as the co-coaches try to fix their problems.
It is a difficult time, and sometimes a team that goes through things like that, and that's where we'll need to stay calm, to find solutions. Because if we start panicking, then things can get bad. We need to keep our calm. We need to keep our heads lucid and try to find solutions.
And Dave Rennie has been appointed New Zealand head coach as he becomes the first person of Pacifica heritage to lead the side. He replaces Scott Robertson, who was sacked in January after 2 years in a row, and he beat Jamie Joseph to the top job. Rennie will honour his role with Japan's Gobi Steelers before preparing the All Blacks for their July test against France, Italy and Ireland.
I'm not sure how long I've wanted it, but I think I'm ready for it. I've coached across the world. You know, I've actually worked with some fantastic people, and I've learnt a lot. Yeah, so I'm really excited to come back home and do the jersey justice. I'm well aware of the expectations and the scrutiny that goes with this role, I'm really excited by it.
Tolagile Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
EWN Traffic.
Okay, we need to go out onto the roads and find out what's exactly happening in the traffic. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John. In Bedfordview, there's been an accident on the N3 North. It's causing heavy delays. This is just after Van Buren Road. If you're traveling through Johannesburg CBD, anticipate some delays on the M1 South. This is from the Crown Interchange to the Killarney Bends. Actually, M1 North from the Crown Interchange to the Killarney Bends due to an accident. And in the opposite direction, look out for those peak time delays as you exit out of Sandton. In Proteas Lane, there's bumper-to-bumper traffic on the N12 West from the R554 and the R558. And lastly, in Pretoria, anticipate some delays on Iskiampatlela Drive between the R80 and Van der Hoef Road. If you do come across any other traffic, likewise, 072-702-1702 on WhatsApp or send us a tweet on X at EWN Traffic.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app. You're now listening to 702 Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Brought to you by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
You're with John Perlman
on 702.
702 Drive. So this was a question we were going to ask and a topic we were going to discuss long before the cricket match actually started. South Africa currently 106 for 5. We're almost through the 15th over. So I think it's fair to say not going particularly well in Kolkata, but I guess you can also say we've got the runs New Zealand still have to bat. Still, not going the way we would have thought or hoped. The question we were going to ask, though, because we were chatting about it a little bit earlier, does sport ever make you so tense and so anxious that you actually say to yourself, you know what, I'm not going to watch anymore. I'm just not going to watch anymore. And have you ever done that? I mean, I've often said, I can't bear this, I can't do this, I'm not going to watch, but I do, and I sit through it because not watching, but kind of trying to find out what's going on for me is infinitely worse. Tolakele, have you ever actually done that?
John, I've done it to the point where people that in my family that don't watch sport will watch a sporting event for me and tell me what happened just because my team lost. And I'm like, now is the time that you decide you're going to tell me what's happening in the world of sport. When I'm happy, no one was there for my joy. I remember there was a time, I think around 2008, 2009, back when Manchester United used to get to like the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League, but we always got Roma in the latter stages. And then there was the one game where we lost 2-1 in the first leg, or was it 3-1 in the first leg? And then I was like, we were so terrible in that first leg. I said, I'm not going to watch the second leg. We ended up winning the second leg 7-1. I was so annoyed with myself. To this day, I'm just like, I should have just suffered through it. And if we lost, we lost. But I hate the fact that I missed such a terrible game live. I still watch the highlights and the reruns of it, but I hate the fact that I never watched it live.
So did anyone ever say to you, listen, when you don't watch, things go really, really well. Please stop watching and allow the rest of us to enjoy sport free from whatever hex you were putting on the team?
So one of my besties is an Orlando Pirates fan, and I have a really great record, according to her, of every time we go to the stadium and Pirates plays, they somehow always win, even though I'm there for a hate watch. So that's her tradition, where she's like, let's go to the game so I can know that my team is going to win comfortably.
So, Khomotso, I don't even know if you're a sports fan or not, but if you are you ever behind the couch or out of the lounge altogether?
Not at all. Actually, I'm going to sit this one out, John. But I will say that I have seen grown men cry, like my father, for instance. Oh, shame. So no, I don't want that kind of anxiety. I'm too young for that. So no.
Okay, so give us your thoughts, please. Do you ever decide, you know what, I'm not enjoying myself, this isn't fun, it's not going to change, and I am not going to watch? Tell us a story if you have that. I mean, I got very tense on the final morning of our World Test Match final against Australia, and even though the total South Africa was chasing was relatively modest, we know the history, and South Africa have really battled sometimes to get over the line in these kinds of games. And at one point I said, you know what, I'm going for a drive. But I never did, because I went and got my keys, poked my head in. We've got another 2 runs. I thought, okay, I'm leaving, but never did. Probably never will, but maybe your story's different. Share it with us, please, on 072 702 1702 and 011 883 0702. It's 11 minutes now to 5 o'clock.
Drive home with John Perlman
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
Let's focus our attention on the implications for South Africa of what's going on in the Middle East, specifically looking at what it will mean for fuel prices, but might it also have implications for fuel availability? Clearly, if the fuel price goes up, as it emphatically and inevitably will, maybe not immediately, but certainly by next month, I think we're looking at a really, really big climb in fuel price. But could there be issues of availability as well? Professor Peter Bauer is Associate Professor at the University of Johannesburg's School of Economics. Prof, welcome, and thanks very much for giving us your time in helping us to understand this better. First of all, before we talk price, let's just talk supply. Where does South Africa get most of its oil from in the first place?
Okay, hi, John, and thank you so much for inviting me today. Okay, yes. So I'm going to break it up into two categories, and I'm basically referring a lot to the 2024 energy report.
Okay.
And firstly, talking of the crude oil. Okay, so it's Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, US, and Angola are our main countries from which we purchase our crude oil from. So Africa plays a very big role in terms of our imports. In terms of refined oil, though, now we can break it up sort of a little bit more into like countries that have the refinery options. So Oman, India, and of course United Arab Emirates. And we can break that up a little bit further because in terms of the refined, you've got your petrol and your diesel. Diesel makes up the majority. That sits at approximately 66%.
Okay.
And petrol makes up about 25% of that. However, and this is where you with the very first point you opened up to, and that was, our capacity to store oil, and we don't, or at least store fuel, and here it becomes a big issue because obviously the private companies will obviously have their stockpiles too, and according to one of our white papers, our earlier gazetted papers, they talk about at least a 3-month stockpile availability. But that is obviously subjected to change depending on season, when the imports are actually coming through, uploading and offloading, et cetera, et cetera. So there are some challenges, yes.
Yes, indeed. Now, thank you for setting it out in such detail, Prof. Let's break this down a little bit, though. How much refining do we still do in South Africa? I know there have been issues, but I understand we still have some refining capacity.
Yes, we do. The Richards Bay, for example, we do have some refining ability available within the economy to process at least the crude oil production.
Okay.
But it's very limited. So in terms of what we really consume, we're still very heavily dependent on the imports, and a consistent flow of imports are now required. And this now, of course, is an additional challenge.
So, for example, I understand we buy a huge amount of oil from Nigeria. Why don't we buy petrol, for example, from Nigeria? I understand the Dangote refinery is the world's 7th biggest. Do we ever buy ready-to-pump fuel from Nigeria, or is it all crude?
That I can't give you enough information on.
Right.
From Nigeria, it's predominantly crude, yes. So why we're not purchasing the fuel itself from Nigeria, that I can't answer. I think in terms of trade relationships and trade agreements, play a very big role, a significant role in establishing trade groups and trade relationships between countries going forward. And so for us, like, for example, Oman, India, and United Arab Emirates, we've already established significant trade relationships. And then, of course, there are other concepts such as, for example, price and
Yes.
again, access to. So, for example, the shipping of the fuel between the different regions can significantly influence the direction or the way in which the shall we say the fuel is actually imported into the country. We mustn't forget as well that from South Africa we export as well these finished products too.
Right.
So, for example, Botswana being Lesotho, obviously, and some of the other smaller countries around South Africa are very dependent on fuel exports coming from South Africa up again towards their end of the world.
So, is there any possibility, if this crisis worsens, and there's no indication yet of it easing, but let's go with worst case scenario for the moment, could we run out of fuel here?
That is a really, really good and a very interesting question. The answer is yes. There are possibilities of fuel shortages, not so much about not having the capacity, but about the distribution concept comes into this. So, for example, if certain suppliers and arrangements have not been put into place, there could be supply issues. I remember a lot of the oil trade comes through the Straits of Hormuz, and of course the shipping there has now obviously been brought to a near halt. And so, geopolitical tensions can reshape that. However, there are alternative markets for South Africa. Again, importing from the U.S. And other regions, greater reliance on India, for example, because
Yes.
India produces refined oils and petrols. We could. So there are alternatives, most definitely. But the possibility of this actually putting pressure on our supplies, yes. And again, now depends on the duration and intensity of what we're going to experience. In the moment, the markets are completely uncertain. We're not sure how long this is going to last. We don't know when this is going to end. And so with the growing tension and the way things are going in the moment, I think right now I would estimate that the challenge is there. But we do have, working operations and much of this trade is like, for example, India, for example,
yes,
can bypass their region, and that should obviously facilitate to a larger degree. We saw, for example. Yeah.
No, finish your point and then I'll come in.
We saw, for example, with the European Union when the Ukrainian crisis had started and they sort of sanctioned, for example, or they stopped gas supplies into Europe. It was just a matter of months before they had alternatives. And so if we do have our reserves and the reserves are running, the alternatives come in. How that's going to translate to the consumer is going to be rather questionable, because then price now suddenly becomes a significant question mark. And obviously that could also influence, for example, the consumer at the end of the day.
And just finally, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I mean, you mentioned we could get more from the United States, which has a burgeoning oil production industry, as I understand it. Could any of those exports to South Africa be subject to political pressure? Relations between ourselves and the United States have not been at the best.
I think, in a sense, it would actually probably be in the U.S. best interest to trade with us. They want to tariff us, and not necessarily always the other way around. So purchasing from the U.S. it would fit right into the Trump administration agenda. So that's great, as long as exports are good and imports are bad. And so we I think in terms of that. However, with political tensions, that could then start becoming a little bit more challenging. It is possible. But again, there would be a price tag associated with it, even if it's a political commitment that they would try and tie to that. But again, we do have other countries. We have, for example, India as well, and then of course in South America, part of the BRICS agreement, we could possibly tap into our South American colleagues.
Thanks so much, Professor Peter Bauer, Associate Professor at the School of Economics. Just a long shot, but I may as well ask. I mean, anyone out there who perhaps owns what in my youth we used to call a garage, filling station, or maybe you're involved in the industry at the retail end, involved with forecourt properties and all the business that surrounds that. If you are, I mean, what are you hearing? Because presumably your industry associations are sharing information with you and trying to give you a heads up on where this thing might go. If you've got some inside track, you might be a commodity trader for that matter. Give us a call. The more we can figure out, the better. I'd like to know more about this. Get us on 072 702 1702.
The Midday Report.
Weekdays,
12 to 1.
I was really sad to hear the news about Musia Lakota. I interviewed him many, many times over my career as a journalist when he was a Minister of Defence, and then, of course, when he made that landmark decision to leave the ANC, and then he decided to launch COPE along with Mbazima Shilowa. I spent a lot of time on the campaign trail with Musia Lakota in the Eastern Cape. He was always so affable. He was very passionate. He was a patriot, and he was a true fighter.
The Midday Report
with Mandy Wiener.
12 to 1 on 702.
702.
Need a seat? Try 7 or 5. It's your call. Want a sunroof? Make it a panoramic. Gotta have power? How does award-winning 138 kilowatt sound? The Changan CS75 Pro is big enough for the kids, smart enough for your playlist, and stylish enough for your Friday night too. Why settle when you can have it all without compromise? The Changan CS75 Pro. Drive tomorrow's SUV today. Visit changanmotors.co.za for more.
Changan, driven to evolve.
It's your last chance to save with the Checkers Extravaganza. Save extra on deals like Fanta, Sprite, Schweppes or Stony soft drinks 2 litres, any 2 for 39 Rand. Save 15%. Sunfoil Pure Sunflower Oil 2 litres for 69.99. Save 25 Rand. And a new Mega Kitchen Towels 2 per pack, 2 for 79 Rand. Save 41 Rand. Valid until 8 March. Only at Checkers, Checkers Hyper or shop on 6060.
This year is the year. I'll be catching flights and not feelings. Serving looks Monday to Sunday. 5 a.m. club. Small things. I'll be awake before a Hadida can even say, This year things are gonna change.
Okay, so what would you like to order then?
Just hit me with the usual. Cut the chicken, single chips and a roll.
Oh, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Get the Nando's flame grilled quarter chicken, single chips and roll for only 82 Rand. Nando's. Oh, what a place.
This is EWN.
The name of controversial blogger Musa resurfaces at Madlanga Commission and Joburg construction sites now under scrutiny. Good afternoon, I'm Bali Dlamini. The Madlanga Commission has heard how controversial entertainment blogger Musa Kaula allegedly attempted to extort money from suspected crime boss Vusimuzikat Matlala. Kaula allegedly wanted the money in exchange for not posting details about Matlala's private life on social media. This is according to suspended head of organised crime at the SAPS, Richard Shibiri, who is testifying before the Commission today. Shibiri says the extortion attempts took place in September 2024.
Interaction arose when Mr. Matlala contacted me, narrated that he believed he was being subjected to an attempted extortion. He informed me that a person identifying himself as a journalist had communicated with him, indicating that information concerning Mr. Matlala's private life was allegedly being supplied to Mr. Musa Kaula.
Shibiri says he advised Matlala to open a case with the police, referring him to Sergeant Fanning Kosi. Shibiri also denied ever reaching out to Kaula, as alleged in the testimony of Witness F.
Yeah, it's not me. I don't know him. I never met him. I don't have his number. He doesn't have my number, and I don't use the name Chomi. I never used that one.
Former senior prosecutor Michael Mashucha has accused forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan of interfering in the operations of the Independent Police Investigative Directorate. He says the police watchdog was under O'Sullivan's control and accused him of impersonating IPID officials. Mashucha, who left the National Prosecuting Authority in 2024, was giving evidence before Parliament's ad hoc committee investigating allegations of corruption in the criminal justice system. Babalondenze reports.
Michael Mashucha was invited to the committee to give evidence relating to the case he was pursuing against Paul O'Sullivan and his former assistant, Sarah Jane Trent. Mashucha was requested to explain how the case against O'Sullivan, who was arrested for impersonating an IPID officer, was struck off the roll and never enrolled again. Mashucha says the case was delayed because of interference from O'Sullivan.
I place evidence before this honorable committee that the IPID investigation at that stage was not independent because it was infiltrated by and led by Mr. O'Sullivan and Sarah Jane Trent.
Mashucha says O'Sullivan later leveled allegations of state capture against him because he had made the decision to prosecute him for violating the IPID Act. O'Sullivan will return to the committee tomorrow. Babalondenza, Eyewitness News.
The city of Johannesburg says it will be conducting inspections at every construction site in the metro following a building collapse that killed 9 people. Yesterday, Minister of Public Works Dean McPherson visited that site and admitted the situation signals the need for crisis management. Officials now say developers who are non-compliant will be blacklisted and charged accordingly. Jabuli Limbata reports.
In a statement, City Manager Floyd Brink said they will be starting with audits of all developments which are currently under construction. He says all documents will be checked and verified in order to safeguard the public from further disaster. Yesterday, Joburg Mayor Dada Morero admitted that they've had challenges with this process.
And yes, we do not have the enough resources, as you know, but the resources that we have to be used optimally to ensure that they perform on their works.
Brink added that bylaws will be enforced with no exceptions. Jabuli Lembata, Eyewitness News.
Former COPE spokesperson Dennis Bloem has remembered the party's late leader, Musia Lakota, for his deep love for South Africa. The former MP died early this morning after battling an illness. Tributes have poured in from various political parties describing Lakota as a patriot. Bloem says Lakota genuinely wanted a South Africa that was equal and free.
He loved this country. That is what made him special. He loved the country. He loved the people of this country. He was a very brave person. He never think about himself. He was always thinking about the people of this country.
And in the DRC, an investigation is underway after 5 people were killed during an armed attack at the headquarters of Upemba National Park. It's understood the assailants targeted the head office on Tuesday afternoon, killing the staff members. Equipment was also looted and infrastructure suffered extensive damage. Nature parks and reserves in the DRC are often caught up in conflicts over their boundaries and the resources they contain. Lusinga, where the park's headquarters are located, is more than 600 kilometers south of Kivu region, where the M23 armed anti-government group has been fighting Congolese armed forces. Gold is trading at $5,190.96 an ounce. The rand is at 16.33 to the dollar, 21.84 to the pound, 19.01 to the euro, and Brent crude oil is at $81.40 a barrel.
In the traffic, look out for those peak time delays on the M1 in both directions as you head in and out of Sandton. In Protea Glen, traffic is congested on the N12 West from the R554 Abubakar Drive and the R558.
In your sport, Cole McConchie takes 2 wickets in 2 balls as South Africa make poor start to their T20 World Cup semi-final against New Zealand. Abdeslam Wadu lords Tepang Muremi as Orlando Pirates gear up for Polokwane City Test. And US Half Marathon Championship organizers to compensate runners who were led off course.
A cloudy Thursday in store for Gauteng tomorrow with scattered showers and thundershowers expected. Johannesburg drops to overnight lows of 17 degrees, peaking at 24. Pretoria 16 and 26 and Vereeniging 15 and 26 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour, the Madlanga Commission has heard how controversial entertainment blogger Musa allegedly attempted to extort money from suspected crime boss Vusimuzi Matlala.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
7:02.
Drive home with John Perlman.
John Perlman, 3 to 6 p.m.
On 92.7 and 106 FM. Let's walk the talk.
7:02 Drive. It's 8 minutes now past 5 o'clock. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you with us. Coming up over the next half an hour or so, we're going to pick up on that story that Mbali Dlamini was leading with a moment ago. The city of Johannesburg says there will be a full audit now of building sites, making sure that everything there is as it should be. This in the light of the tragedy out in Ormonde in the south of Johannesburg earlier. It's been established that the company involved in putting up the building that collapsed, claiming 9 lives, is a company called New World Order. An excellent piece in the Sowetan by Kwena Mashale and Lindile Sefile have established, after they engaged with the National Home Builders Registration Council that regulates an important section of the building industry, that this company doesn't appear anywhere in their system. They've also established, these 2 Sowetan journalists, that there's a shortage of building inspectors in Johannesburg, only 59 of them to cover a city of this size. So I'm very interested to know this from you, that the building sites are there where people can see them. Is there a building site going up near you, and is it a site that you have thought questionable in any way, shape or form? Give us a call on that on 011 883 0702 and 072 702 1702. We'll start off our examination of the issues in a moment with Eric Raboshaga, who is Executive Director for Development Planning at the City of Johannesburg. And then we'll pick it up with Roy Mnisi, Executive Director at the Master Builder Association. All that and more coming up on 7:02 Drive. It's 9 minutes past 5. Let's get you clued up on the traffic.
7:02. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Hi, John. I just want to say I'm a rugby fan, a Blue Bulls fan in particular, as well as the Springboks. And I just want to say, when Springboks plays with other smaller teams that we were sure that they're going to win, I watch because I know that they're going to win. And I'm a sore loser. So when the Blue Bulls play with, for example, the Sharks, it's a bit of an a tight game, so I don't really watch. So I watch the games where I know my team is definitely gonna win. So yeah, great show.
Good afternoon, Tate John. There was a time during the times of Pitso Mosimane and Rulane Mokoena when I didn't want to miss a second of the Sundowns match because I knew we were winning. Even when coming from behind, I always had hope. But these days, I can't even sit down when we're playing because I'm always nervous. More often than not, I watch the match with my volume down because I even find these match commentators biased. It's Bongs Lenyora Wale Sandawana in Montana.
Yeah. I mean, what some people say, what's the point of watching your team if you're not going to watch those tight games that make you nervous? It can't always be easy, although as a Sundowns fan, probably has been. Question we asked, by the way, a little bit earlier, I suppose a little bit in the light of the cricket. We're 166 for 8, by the way, in the final over, so it hasn't gone as well as we would hope. Are there times when you watch sport that it makes you so anxious that you just say, you know what, I'm not going to watch anymore? Keep those coming on 072 702 1702. It's 11 minutes past 5.
EWN Traffic.
EWN Traffic is brought to you by Outsurance. SMS out to 45142 now, and you could save on car insurance. If you don't, ask them for 500 Rand. Khumotso Munyai with the latest.
Thank you, John. Heading into Brakpan from Boksburg, you can anticipate some peak time delays on the N17 East. This is causing slow-moving traffic. And staying within the Eastern Bedford View, that accident on the N3 North is still causing heavy delays just after Van Buren Road. In Sandton, if you're coming into Bryanston, expect some delays on the N1 South. This is after Winnie Mandela Drive with the center lane affected. Also look out for those peak time delays on the M1 South as you head into the Crown interchange. Likewise, if you come across any traffic, please do send us a WhatsApp on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
You know that feeling when your flight gets upgraded? That's how good it feels to see the Outsurance pointsmen on your route. Everyone feels the difference when the Outsurance pointsmen are on the roads. They've been easing the traffic congestion so everyone gets where they need to be quickly and safely for the past 20 years. With Outsurance, you really always get something out. In proud partnership with 702. Show them some love online using #PointsmenLove. Licensed insurer and FSP.
Driving the conversation on 702 Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Powered by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
You're with John Perlman on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
Right, let's focus our attention now on unsafe construction sites in Johannesburg. This in the light of the Ormonde tragedy earlier this week that claimed 9 lives. We heard earlier in Mbali Dlamini's news bulletin that the city will now be doing a comprehensive audit of building sites around Johannesburg. So how are they going to go about that? Let's welcome to 702 Drive Eric Rabuschaga, who's Executive Director responsible for development planning at the City of Johannesburg. Mr. Rabuschaga, welcome and thanks very much for your time. I highlighted earlier, and I think you would have heard, but I'm sure this is a figure you already know, that the city has a really serious shortage of building inspectors. Given that, how are you going to get this audit done if, in many ways, it's that lack of capacity that to some degree has brought us to the problem we have today? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John, and thank you for having me. I think let me start by expressing our concern as a city regarding the building collapse that occurred in Ormonde on Monday. The loss and the risk to human life is something that we take extremely serious. I think it's important that I put that out there. And I think before I get to the numbers, John, I just want to also specify that no building plans were submitted on that structure, and they were, nothing was approved by the city prior to construction of that building. So it's important that that information is out there, and that this is a serious contravention of the building control framework of the city, or the bylaws and the national legislation that applies to issues of construction. And I think as a department, we must be, and as a city, we must be honest about our constraints. and we don't have sufficient building inspectors to proactively monitor every area of the city. So that is something we need to also be honest about. And our current capacity limits us to almost like a reactive approach, meaning we respond to complaints and reported cases of illegal construction, rather than conducting continuous area-wide inspections as we are supposed to be doing as a city. I think to give your listeners a sense of scale, in Omonde we currently have one building inspector responsible for approximately 9,500 even properties cutting across over 70 townships, and I think that is far above an effective supervision ratio.
So can I come in there and ask you this question, Mr. Rabushaka? Is it that there's no money for posts, or is there budget for posts but they remain unfilled? Because those two would be different problems.
So yes, I would say there is no money for posts. So I think at the moment we have what we call the City Strategic Panel Committee. So every department that has to fill positions has to go and submit their motivation to this committee. And you are then allocated a number of positions to fill. We have for the past 2 years been applying for these positions, and whenever we're given permission, we get to fill the positions quite quickly. If we could, John, we would obviously fill all the positions that we have vacant, but we are limited in terms of the financial capabilities, and we are therefore unable to fill all the positions.
How many positions are vacant?
So at the moment, look, we've got about 59 positions that are directed purely for building control. Of course, there are other inspectors that are looking at areas of a sort of land use management, but we've got about 30 positions.
Let's stick with building. 59, you say. How many are vacant?
So 59, and we've got about 30 positions that are vacant that we could fill. But we are also engaging the other departments, national departments, other spheres of government, to see if they can provide the capacity. So we're not just waiting, for funding to become available, to see if we can't access their resources and if they can't assist us in terms of increasing capacity.
But it does sound, Mr. Rabushaka, from the rhythm that you're describing, that this will fill the gap for now, so the audit will at least get substantially done, even if it's not done in the completeness that you would like. And then presumably we would go back to business as usual in the city of Johannesburg, where there are not enough inspectors, where the offices, and we've discussed this in other interviews, where the offices where plans are meant to be lodged and accessed and used for planning and safety purposes are in a state of disarray. I think that's common cause. I mean, presumably we will just wait for the next Omonde, won't we?
No, not really, John. So I don't know if you have noticed, we now have targeted operations to deal with the issue of understaffed areas. So we've dedicated a specific number of days that some other team members that are coming from other regions can come and assist in regions where there is sort of low capacity, and we're able to then have a targeted approach and deal with a large number of properties in that region. And we are targeting particularly areas where we know that there are high levels of transgressions, and we are finding that that process is actually helping us, and we're not planning to stop those operations. We're planning to continue those operations into the distant future until we are able to arrest the sort of transgressions. Today, for example, we were targeting 3 areas, including Brixton and Omonde and some other areas in the city where we know that we've got challenges in the city. In Omonde, we were specifically targeting buildings that are owned by the owner whose building collapsed on Monday, and they own more than 12 buildings in that area. So we are just sort of dotting our I's and crossing our T's.
Have you found the owners?
We now know who the owners are, but we haven't engaged them.
So you haven't actually tracked them down, sat across from them, and say you have something to account for. You know who they are, but nothing further.
We know who they are, but nothing further. We were able to speak to the contractor on Monday, I think for a few minutes, and then when they realized the scale of the problem, they switched off their phones, and we were unable to then reach out to them. But we are aware that their lawyers released a statement yesterday, and we are trying to trace their lawyers so that we can have an engagement with them. Ultimately, with the SAPS has also taken over the site, and at the end of that process, we are hoping to sort of open a case that can then be handed over to. So that's a.
And make them the fugitives from the law that I think they are, whether that's been legally framed or not. I mean, it's an absolutely disgraceful situation that these people are putting up a building. They own other buildings. People know who they are. They've spoken to the authorities, and the authorities and made clear to them that they are wanted for discussions about a tragedy that has cost 9 lives. And I really hope when this comes to court that those are considered aggravating circumstances when the law actually clicks into action. It's absolutely shocking. Eric Rabuschaga is with the City of Joburg, Executive Director responsible for development planning. So it's a terrible state of affairs. Let's get an overview of that now and welcome our next guest. Roy Mnisi is Executive Director at the Master Builders South Africa. Mr. Mnisi, welcome back, because we've enjoyed your company on the show before. I mean, just looking at some of the core information that comes out, we've got the City of Johannesburg without an adequate number of inspectors. We have a tragedy, as you well know, where 9 people have died. We've got the National Home Builders Registration Council saying this company, New World Order, is not registered with them at all, doesn't appear in the system. We can park for a moment the problems with plans and accessing them at the City of Johannesburg. It really does sound in the economic heartland of the country like we have a massive problem. Is it as out of hand as it certainly appears to me to be? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John, and good afternoon to 702 listeners. John, indeed, it's a very, very sad moment for us as the industry. We have been seeing these incidents happening from time to time, and it's not good for the industry. But, John, I think I want to say the following. I think it's time that we don't shy away from having a difficult discussion. What do I mean by this? The systems are not working as they are supposed to be working.
Right.
And it's reflecting on the responses that you get on the questions around why does it happen that people are able to take up such a huge project without, having building plans, without having done things that they are supposed to be doing before they can actually erect such a building.
My understanding is we have something, I think it's called the Construction Industry Development Board, in addition to registering with the Home Builders Registration Council that I mentioned. My understanding is with the, I think it's the CIDB, if I've got the acronym correct, you've got to get a rating. And if your rating says that you can't put up a structure either larger than or taller than, then you are breaking the law if you go and embark on a project like that. Have I got that right? And secondly, are there a large number of operators out there, Mr. Mnisi, who simply ignore the requirements to register and be evaluated?
Indeed, John, there are contractors that are ignoring all that, and there are many reasons why some unscrupulous contractors are taking those shortcuts. One of the reasons is because they are aware that the authorities or the law enforcement agencies are not well capacitated. I think that's an observation that most of us have made when City of Joburg responded to say that, but we don't have, enough inspectors on the ground. So
Right.
that itself result in people wanting to take advantage of that particular shortcoming and say, let's do it, let's see what can happen. You mentioned the likes of, CIDB, NSBRC. Those are regulators within the construction sector, and they do various things. But what is important here is making sure that the buildings are in compliance with the national building regulations and building standards, because those are the laws that ensure the
Right.
safety the health and the structural integrity for all construction projects in the country. Every contractor must comply with those regulations. But we see things happening because, people are thinking that, look, I can get away with it.
And they
if,
do.
No one knows about it, and then they do. But the problem with that, John, the issue around not having enough inspectors and capacity to deal with that, you need to ask yourself a question: at what cost? What's the value of people that are dying in those projects? What's the cost of the loss of revenue rather by these municipalities, because they are actually losing money. It affects the local economy because people are just finding a place and build whatever. And it's not like when you have got a building plan, even if it's approved, you can't just build anywhere. We have got zonings in municipalities where a particular area is zoned for something. So if you have got an approval for a house, you can't build a warehouse in that particular place. So those are the things that are not working.
So, Mr. Mnisi, I just want to conclude with you by getting a better sense for myself, and I'm sure for many of our listeners, from your experience and expertise of this concept of a building inspector. I mean, first of all, what kind of qualifications do building inspectors have? And secondly, when they come and inspect a building site, what are they looking for? And indeed, do they have the necessary expertise or the capacity to keep returning, because building sites obviously change as progress is made? I suppose the short version of my question is, even if a building inspector has been there and says everything is fine, can we trust that?
Well, John, we should trust that because these are professionals in their own right that can vouch to the structural integrity, for example, of the foundations, the slabs, the strength of the concrete, the cement, and things like that. So once they come, they don't just come and have a look at it. They do put a report together to say we have tested this and that, and based on what we have tested, we're comfortable that the building is of the right quality. The people that are doing the work know what they are doing, and you get some sort of assurance in that regard. So yes, I will say that if we were to have the inspections, a lot of these disasters will be mitigated to a greater level.
Thanks very much to Roy Mnisi, Executive Director at Master Builders South Africa. Yeah, it's an absolutely terrible situation that we're in. If you've had direct experience, perhaps you've been managing a site, somebody's putting up a structure for you, or you're in the construction business yourself, and you've had building inspectors on site. What has your experience been like? Focusing particularly on the city of Joburg, but if you want to talk about other metros in South Africa, we'd love to hear that as well. Give us a call, please, with your experience and your insight. If you've been a building inspector yourself, by the way, that would be even better. We'd love to hear from you too. It's 28 minutes past 5.
EWN Business.
Stephen Curtis, a very good afternoon to you. Markets have closed a better day, but still quite a bit to be clawed back, I would imagine. Over to you.
Afternoon, John. You know when your dog gets hold of the tennis ball for about a month and then you're finally able to get the tennis ball back?
Yes.
And you drop it and it doesn't bounce anymore. Like it kind of hits the ground and comes up a little bit. That's the market today.
My dog is a cat, so but I know what you mean.
Well, then, of course, obviously they're above balls. I mean,
Yes.
who needs a ball if you're a cat?
There is the dead cat bounce, but I'm not in that situation.
The Dow Jones, the Dow Jones. So the JSE All Share ending up 0.96%, 121,114. Nowhere close to making up yesterday's losses, but better than nothing. Financials are up 0.67, industrials up 1.17, and resources up 1.43. The rand a lot stronger to the dollar. Basically, what we've seen is a lot of trades reverse, so people are buying the dip And this is kind of where we are, but we're not where we were before the current sort of conflict started in the Middle East and particularly around Iran. So platinum prices are a bit higher, and that's pushing shares up as well. Northam's up 7.93, Valterra up 5.34. We're also seeing other things going on. So there's been quite a lot of corporate activity this week, and that's beginning to make an impact. So Aspen, they had their update yesterday. They're up 5.55%. I think people guessing whatever happens, people are going to want to lose weight, John. And obviously they're big in the weight loss space. Pick and Pay, strong day for them, up nearly 4%. And Naspers also up 3% on the day. Then two of the shares that have done very well earlier in the week since the US and Israel started attacking Iran, Thungela and Sasol, both now big losers of the day. Thungela down 6, Sasol down 5%. You may remember, John, ShopRite's figures are out yesterday, and lots of speculation as to where their market share is coming from because it's just a ferocious increase. Well, Spar down 3.5% today. I must say that analysis suggested Pick and Pay would be down, but that market share would be coming from there. But they're up, so I think people buying one story, but not necessarily the other. And then DRD Gold also down 2%, slightly surprising considering that gold prices are higher at the moment. Cash Build reporting they were able to increase their headline earnings by 16% despite some of the problems, the sort of tough environment they're in. And then Woolies, they've been investing a lot in their back-end stuff, and that's put their margins under pressure. But the headline earnings per share is still up by nearly 10%. John, lots going on in different parts of the world. So South Korea's had a big AI rally, and that came crashing down today. They were down by the single biggest day, let me get this right, the biggest single-day plunge that they've ever had, down over 12%, and partly because of what's happening in the Middle East. And then in the US, things are looking positive now. They've got a lot of recovering to do as well after what happened there yesterday and the day before. The Dow Jones is up 0.22, the Nasdaq is up 0.57, the S&P 500 is up 0.16% on the day. The gold price slightly higher, but not as high as it's been, $5,149.04 an ounce. Platinum, $2,149.97, and Brent crude $1 off where it was yesterday, $81.39. As this goes on, more and more concerns about what's going to happen there. The rand to the dollar, 16.35, to the euro, 19.02, to the British pound, 21.86. On the Money Show tonight, John, we will be hearing from the CEO at Woolies, the CEO at Cash Build. I'm also really looking forward to hearing Kai Satole's views on the issues at the Public Investment Corporation. They've brought in a panel of experts to sort out their unlisted companies. They seem to have major problems there. 40% of their investments in the unlisted space are not working. So we'll have a look at that. We will also be looking at how AI recruitment is preventing older people from getting a job, not because they don't know anything about AI, they're usually smarter than AI, but because of a sort of hidden bias. And then also, I've been speaking to Tola Kelly this afternoon, and she's agreed. I mean, there'll be a little bit of kicking and screaming, but she's agreed to come and spend most of the show with me in the studio to update us on the cricket by minute, the climax of it only on The Money Show. Stephen Curtis, EWN Business.
A brave man indeed. It's 27 minutes to 6. Eyewitness News is brought to you by Momentum. Financial advisors help you have a better shot at generational wealth. Speak to a Momentum accredited financial advisor. Momentum is part of Momentum Group Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. Here's Mbali Dlamini.
Thanks, John. Good afternoon. Suspended head of organized crime at the SAPS, Richard Shibiri, says he used to exchange texts with suspected crime boss Vusimuzi Madlala, but this was for social purposes. Shibiri has been testifying before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, which is sitting in Pretoria today. He has been accused by previous witnesses of being in the pockets of suspected crime cartel bosses, including allegedly receiving around 80,000 rand in cash from Madlala. Shibiri says he used to text Madlala on his personal phone and not the SAPS issued device.
Unless otherwise indicated, such communications were informal, social, or work-related within ordinary professional engagement and did not involve the disclosure of classified information, operational strategy, or confidential investigative material.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says he will always remember Musia Lakota's contribution to the liberation struggle despite their political differences. The COPE leader died at the age of 77 early this morning after a prolonged illness. Although the two were close at the start of their political careers, their relationship deteriorated in the early 1970s. Lakota had for many years accused Ramaphosa of selling him out and standing by while he was detained on Robben Island. But Ramaphosa maintains that Lakota was a man of great integrity, regardless of their political disagreements.
Lakota and I have a long history of political activism. And we met at university, and we were both expelled from university for our political activism. And we met again when we were both involved in the ANC, and he became a minister in our government.
He says he still holds much respect for the late COPE leader.
Due to political differences that are common in their political life, he went off and formed his own organization, and I continued to have a deep respect for him. He was a committed South African. He loved this country, much as we were now serving from different benches, as it were.
The Gauteng Education Department says it will start implementing a program for grade 1 and 8 learners to catch up now that all learners have been placed in the province. The department confirmed that the last group was placed yesterday and it has started with classes. Parents have raised their complaints with the department over placement since the start of the 2026 school year. Jabuli Lembata has more.
Last month, many parents were seen lining up at the respective Education Department district offices, desperate for their children to get schools. The department says there were 33,000 late applications, which contributed to the placement backlog. Department spokesperson Steve Mabona says the last group were placed in schools in Tembisa and Kempton Park.
By Tuesday evening, on the 3rd of March 2026, the department had successfully placed all remaining learners at alternative schools in the respective areas. Now, in numbers, the total figure of grade 1 and grade 8 learners that were placed for the 2026 academic year through the system accounted at over 392,000.
The department had placed almost 800 mobile classrooms across 15 districts to deal with the pressure. Jabuli Limbata, Eyewitness News.
A cloudy Thursday in store for Gauteng tomorrow with scattered showers and thundershowers expected. Lows of between 15 and 17 degrees and highs of between 24 and 26. The top story in EWN, suspended head of organised crime at the SAPS, Richard Shibiri, says he used to exchange text messages with suspected crime boss Vusimuzi Matlala.
They say the early bird catches the worm. Great advice, unless you're the worm. Generic so-called wisdom doesn't work for everyone, so I settle for a financial plan that's one size fits some. Momentum accredited financial advisors take the time to get to really know your unique situation. Advice meets your context. Momentum, your journey to success. Momentum is part of Momentum Group Limited, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
Clement Maniatella.
Weekday mornings,
9 to 12.
9 to 12.
What's currently taking place in the Middle East and trying to get a sense of what the French position is there.
We really regret the fact that international law is not being respected because it will have a long-term effect everywhere in the world. No one in my country can be saddened by the passing of the Iranian dictator. That's absolutely clear. We're talking about someone who has been butchering his own people for years and years and years.
David Martineau is the ambassador of France to South Africa, Lesotho and Malawi.
Clements Maniatella.
9 to 12 on 702.
On Friday, 13 March, the Grateful Hearts Foundation invites you to celebrate motherhood, love and legacy at Pilo, A Mother's Love. It's a powerful evening of art, food and wine in Rosebank. Hosted at Aspire Art and the Atrium at Keys Art Mile, experience works by Sam Nklengetwa, Zizipo Poswa, Boemo Diale and more. Enjoy a harvest table by Lady Day, fine wine, and an intimate artist panel. All proceeds support pediatric cardiac care through Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital. Get your tickets today on Howler.
Solve exciting riddles and unravel a web of suspense and adventure with Hollywood Bets and Spinnazonke Mystery Parcel. You stand a chance to win a share of 1 million rand in cash and bonus bets. Start your quest and bet 2 rand or more on selected Playtech slots every Wednesday between 2:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. and Sunday from 4:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. What scintillating secret will your parcel reveal? Bet now.
T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
I heard her interviews run smoother because she somehow finds the right people the first time around.
Yeah, it's like she already knows who fits where before they even sit down.
She must have gone for special training, like some Sixth Sense HR certificate.
No, guys, it's SA Youth, the largest youth online recruitment platform. It's fast to post, effortless to use, and effective every time.
Recruit on the portal to potential. sayouth.co.za, powering South Africa's youth workforce.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Hi, John. John, you drive past Alex on a N3. There are trouble stories that are hanging over to N3. And I always ask myself as I stay in the East Rand and work in the Midrand side, and I always ask myself every day, where will I be when the disaster happens in one of these buildings? Those buildings, I don't know if they are approved. Some, they are so really suspicious, really suspicious that you even ask yourself, how is it possible that this thing is hanging over the freeway and the inspectors are just driving past it and have a look at it and say, oh, that's nice. Makata Makulu on his way.
Hi, John and the 702 lenders. So it's very sad that our government have money for everything else except for service delivery and other stuff. Like they don't have money, they don't have budget to close those vacant posts, but they just spent I think they said 7 million for a sauna. So what is that? Like they spend money on like not very important things. Like it's very, very stressful. So if for you to get your building plans approved, you need to pay something to somebody to fast track the process.
Good afternoon, John. Great show as always. I'm listening to your interview with the gentleman from the department, and there's a common theme. Everywhere there is no money. There is no money to hire staff. Each and every department there's no money. I've never heard that a department says that they have money. All of them, they don't have money. But budgets are allocated. But what's happening to money? Or should we just stop paying taxes and just relax? Because there's never money. It means the taxes we pay, they disappear into thin air. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a theme I've harped on many occasions. I mean, it is absolutely extraordinary how quickly money can be found for things. It is absolutely unbelievable how often absurd amounts of money are paid for things. And I just need to say 2 words, Tembisa Hospital. But there are multiple examples of that across every single department that you can imagine. And yes, but there isn't money for building inspectors, and that has cost 9 people their lives. It's 17 minutes to 6.
EWN Sport.
Tola Kele, very good afternoon to you. You keeping an eye on the cricket for us. How are we doing?
Well, John, New Zealand have been set a victory target of 170 in their T20 World Cup semi-final against South Africa. The latest from their chase sees them on 48 without any loss after 4 overs. They need 122 runs and 96 balls for victory. At the crease is Allen on 20 alongside Sefat on 28. Earlier, Marco Janssen's unbeaten 55 from 30 balls and a 24-ball 29 from Tristan Stubbs helped South Africa post 169 for 8. For the Black Caps, Matt Henry, Rachin Ravindra and Cole McConchie took 2 wickets each. Switching over to the Bedway Premiership, where the action continues this evening with 5 games scheduled. Orlando Pirates are away to Polokwane City, looking for a win that will keep them top of the standings. And Adeslam Madu will be expecting Tepang Moremi to deliver the goods once again. That's after he netted the opening goal in their Soweto derby win over Kaizer Chiefs.
We have many coaches. Everybody want to be coach. In the social media, there is coaches. In the stand, there is coaches. They want to make player the way that they want. But as a technician, as a coach, we have eyes to analyze the quality of the player. And when you see that his main quality is speed, we have to use this main quality and to create the right environment and to put him in the right position to exploit his qualities.
Mamelodi Sundowns will be reunited with former coach Manqoba Mngqithi when Golden Arrows travel to Loftus Versfeld Stadium this evening. Jaden Adams has discussed what they expect against Abafana Bestende, who sit in 12th position on the log.
How we expect a physical, athletic team. They're well coached. You saw the last time we met them play the draw. I think defensively they're good. In the attack, they're very good. So it's going to be a nice one for us and a challenging one for us.
Arsenal will look to maintain their 5-point lead at the top of the Premier League standings when they take on Brighton this evening. Mikel Arteta's Gunners are overwhelming favourites to claim all 3 points as they're unbeaten in 11 away games in all competitions.
Very, very good side, the way they are coached as well, and they have a sequence of years as well with a very similar style and players that fit really, really well. What they want to do, they really believe in what they do. So, yeah, always a very tough opponent.
And 3 athletes will be compensated by the US Half Marathon Championship organizers after they were mistakenly led off course by a race motorbike during Sunday's event in Atlanta. Organizers say police assigned to mark out the route had to respond to an emergency call, which led to confusion. Jess McLean is among those that will be reimbursed after she was leading the women's race before being taken off the main course. Tolagile Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
EWN Traffic.
Right, many of you heading home, many of you are still on your way somewhere else that isn't home. You're out in the traffic, we're going to guide you. Here's Khomotso Munyai.
Thank you, John. Look out for those peak time delays on the M1 South as you head to the Crown Interchange, as well as in Bedford View on the N3 North. This is stretching all the way back from the Elands Interchange through Geldenes right up to Galuli's Interchange. So a lot of patience there, yeah? Heading into Brakpan from Boksburg, anticipate some peak time delays as well on the N17 East. And if you're traveling on the main Reef Road, there's been an accident just before New Canada Road, and it is causing heavy delays. As an alternative, try using the Nasrec Road. And lastly, in Pretoria, anticipate some peak time delays on the N1 North from Dertebord heading towards the N4. If you come across any other traffic on your side, please do send us a tweet on X at EWN Traffic.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app. Stay with 702 Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Brought to you by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
You're with John Perlman
on 702.
702 Drive, it's 12 minutes to 6. Let's send you home with some music ringing in your ears. Of course, you get to choose some of the tracks that we play. I'll explain exactly why and how. Now, in the days of my youth and well into my 20s and probably beyond that, you couldn't buy a single song. You had to buy... I'm wrong in that. Actually, in my very young days, you could buy something called a 7-single that had 2 songs, one on each side. But basically, you waited for albums, LPs, which then became CDs, and so on. And so sometimes there was just something you absolutely loved, maybe 2 songs you had to have, but the rest of the album was a little bit of a bust. And you listened to these 2 songs, and that somehow made this money that you spent worth it. But along would come sometimes albums that were just packed with great songs. And I can think of a few, but I'd rather hear from you, and I'd rather hear from a couple of my colleagues as well. Here is the question. What is the album that for you had more great songs on it than any others? And so we can actually play a snatch of it. Out of that best album with the most great songs, you got to pick one. And tell us the album, tell us the song. You may want to mention some of the others that were close contenders, but give us something we can dig out of the library and share not only with you, but the rest of our listeners. So Jonathan Fairburn is in. When I asked you about albums packed with great songs, you said there were quite a few. So I'm not sure what you've settled on.
Yeah, John, afternoon. There are so many albums, and I'm going to single out one artist, Bon Jovi.
Okay.
Because the earlier albums that they had released were magnificent, really, really good. In particular, their third album, Slippery When Wet. And I mean, there's I think there's 10 tracks on that album, and there's 4 bangers. Like there's really, 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 really good songs, classics. And that was released in 1986. And I mean, you compare the stuff he's released maybe over the last, let's say, 10 years, just doesn't compare at all. Those rock ballads and whatnot, they don't come close. So that for me is the album I'm going to pick. Slippery When Wet, released in 1986 and produced by a guy, funnily enough, called Bruce Fairbairn. Same surname as me.
Okay.
I wonder if there's any family connection there. Inheritance. Just joking. And the song that we're going to pick from this particular album is Living on a Prayer.
Here we go. Living on a Prayer, Bon Jovi, their third album, Slippery When Wet. The question I asked Kabazela, and I'm asking you the same one. What album for you packed in the most great songs? Tell us the name of the album, and out of all those great songs, pick one. Send it to us on 072-702-1702. If we get a chance, we'll play it for you.
.702 Afternoons
with Relebogile Maboja, 1 to 3 p.m.
Conversation around dog psychology with licensed psychologist Dr. David Consalves. There's some people that predators, scammers, abusers will never try. And I don't know what it is they see.
Perpetrators can often tell who has someone in their corner and who doesn't. There's a certain confidence that comes from, there is someone in my corner. And they read that confidence, body language, language that they use, where this person is connected to someone who cares and who has some form of influence.
702 Afternoons
with Relebogile Maboja.
Let's walk the talk.
Make 2026 your year for personal growth. Apply now for the mid-year intake of either the Master of Business Administration or Postgraduate Diploma in Business Administration programs at Wits Business School. Their MBA and PDBA programs will equip you with the critical thinking and leadership skills necessary to face the challenges of the evolving world of work and business. Applications are now open for the July intake and close on 30 April. Visit wbs.ac.za for more info. Wits Business School, sculpting global leaders.
What's with the camouflage, Dorf? I'm going hunting. Just me, nature, and my most underrated off-roader, a rental car. Hunting? You could fit that little car in your backpack, Dorf. I sit in the driver's seat. Baggage at the back, chairs on the roof. The kudu is going to get in and strap its own seatbelt, Savvy. Could do with more legroom, Dorf. Go hunt for a new 4x4 at We Buy Cars. They got great deals. Oh, shot, Savvy.
Don't be Dorf, be savvy. We Buy Cars, geared for that big trip, geared for you.
From your pet's bowl.
Chipolito, bro.
Or Barcelona. Maybe Bordeaux?
How about Brazil?
Or Bots, Betty's, Bavians, Bella Bella, or even Benoni. Buy any Hills pet food and you could win one of 10 holidays worth 200,000 Rand each. Or take the bucks. Scientifically proven formulas for your pet. An adventure for you. Hills Pet Nutrition. Science does more. T's and C's apply.
702 Drive with John Perlman was proudly brought to you by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
702. WhatsApp John
on 072
702
1702.
Hi, good afternoon, Tate John. Tate John is speaking to Ali from Joburg. And Tate John, there's an album by Joshua Caddison, but I can't just remember the name of the album. So almost all the tracks that are on that album are beautiful. There's a song called Beautiful in My Eyes. I remember when that album comes out, I used to work for the music shop, looking lesson, just to say, you know, it was the best selling album of that year. Thank you, Tate John.
You're my peace of mind in this crazy world. You're everything I've tried to find. Your love is a pearl. You're my Mona Lisa. You're my rainbow skies and my...
Beautiful in My Eyes, 1994, Joshua Caddison. Wow, I love the reference to Look and Listen. I'm assuming you're referring to that wonderful shop in Hillbrow, Pretoria Street, I think it was. Anyway, very, very special memories of browsing, even though I didn't really have any money. You asked about the album title, by the way. It was called Painted Desert Serenade. Mark's in Centurion with an album packed with wonderful tracks. Mark, what's on your mind? Good afternoon.
Yeah, hi, John. First thing, there's so many albums I can think of. Hotel California, Joshua Tree, etc. So on Pink Floyd. But I think the one would be good. It'd be Fleetwood Mac, and the album was called Rumors. And the song was Go Your Own Way, because they had so many good songs on the album.
They did indeed, but you picked a beauty. Mark, Fleetwood Mac, Rumors, a hugely decorated album, packed with hits. This is a good one.
Isn't the right thing to do? How can I ever change things that I feel? If I could, maybe I'd give you my word. How can I, when you won't take it from me? You can go your own way.
Fleetwood Mac, it came out in 1977. It sold over 40 million copies worldwide. It won a Grammy in 1978. and was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame later on. Terrific album. Okay, let's see what a couple of other suggestions we might have. Let's listen.
Hi, Brajon. This is Gomez from Letlagane, Northwest. For me, it's Guns N' Roses. I think the album was back in the late 80s. I think 87, 88, 87 likely. And the album was Appetite for Destruction. I was actually introduced to Guns N' Roses through that album back in those days even. The song out of that album I loved first was Paradise City, but then the one I'd like you to play is Don't You Cry. I think, that one. Thank you, Gomez.
Hi, Dr. John. It's David speaking. The Power of Great Music by James Ingram has got very nice songs. There's No Easy Way is another one.
I held her close to me, 'cause I know she breaks so easily. And then I told her,
James Ingram playing us out on 702 Drive. From me, John Perlman, and the team. Have a great evening. Good night.
And now, The Money Show.
With Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
And DSTV channel 856.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa Corporate and Investment Banking. Refined performance is a measure of discipline. That's how we're invested in your story. Absa is a registered FSP. Good evening on your Money Show tonight. The public investment